Shanghai. It's a massive city in the south with nearly 20 million people. It's the heart of the economy, a place where stories of obsession, money, and business warfare play out every single day. But right now, I was sitting inside a crumbling 7-story building, tucked away in a tiny office called Shuanha Law Firm. I let out a long, heavy sigh. My stomach growled. I clutched my midsection and grimaced. I couldn't believe I had traveled through time and space only to end up like this. I was now Lin Mo, a washed-up, broke lawyer. My pockets were empty. I hadn't eaten in an entire day. My head was spinning from hunger. How does a lawyer end up this destitute? Well, the previous owner of this body was a walking disaster. His first case as a licensed lawyer was a simple compensation claim. The plaintiff wanted $5 million. My client was actually ready to pay up and settle. But then, genius Lin Mo stepped in. He gave a speech so passionate and so logical that the court took notice. They ordered a retrial. During the deep dive, the police found new evidence. It turned out my client hadn't just hurt the plaintiff. He had defrauded over a dozen other companies for massive amounts of money. The $5 million fine was indeed waived. Instead, my client got 20 years in prison. The legal world was stunned. I had successfully sent my own client behind bars. Sure, the client was a criminal, but a professional lawyer is supposed to prevent that outcome, not cause it. Before they hauled him away, the client cried out in pure agony, asking if I was a spy sent by the other side. Then came the second case. A guy was sued for property damage after doing some graffiti. The threshold for criminal charges was 5,000 yuan. The damage he caused was 5,500. He was right over the line. I was confident. I requested a re-evaluation of the damages. The result was great. The damage was recalculated at 4,500 yuan. He was no longer guilty of property damage. But then, the prosecution pivoted. They charged him with picking quarrels and provoking trouble instead. The result? 5 years in prison. It was another legendary disaster. Property damage usually just results in a fine or a maximum of 3 years. Quarrels and trouble carries up to 5. My client went from paying a fine to serving half a decade. 2 cases, 2 clients in prison. I became famous overnight, but for all the wrong reasons. They gave me a nickname. The lawyer even ghosts fear. The mockery reached a peak. One legal elite joked that at 26, I had already achieved a reputation that most veterans couldn't build in a lifetime. A legal genius, they called me. That kind of fame is a curse. My old firm kicked me out immediately to save their own skin. I became the laughingstock of the industry. Even my girlfriend, who was also a lawyer, dumped me. She said she didn't want me ruining her career. Left with nothing, I spent my last bit of cash to open this tiny firm. But who in their right mind would hire me? Hiring me was basically a shortcut to a prison cell. And that's how I ended up starving. This felt like a hell mode start to a new life. I forced a bitter smile. At least my girlfriend left me now instead of running away on our wedding day. Small favors, I guess. I noticed the original Lin Mo had a decent following on social media. People loved to hate him. His live streams usually had 10,000 people watching just to mock him. Since he couldn't get real cases, he lived off the tiny ad revenue from those streams. I realized I could do the same. I could go live and offer legal consultations for money. When it came to professional knowledge, I was 100 times better than the old Lin Mo. In my past life, I was a partner at a top-tier firm with 10 years of experience and a 100% win rate. My style was unpredictable, my angles were sharp, and my understanding of the law was borderline supernatural. Actually, that's why I'm here. After I won my last case, the opposing lawyer lost his mind. He hit me with a construction truck. I never lost in court, but I lost to a hit-and-run in the real world. Luckily, the laws in this world were almost identical to Earth's. I could make a comeback. The hell mode start provided one thing: attention. Suddenly, a crisp sound echoed in my head. A system notification appeared. It told me I was a legal outlaw, and the legal vanguard system was activating. The rules were simple. Complete a legal consultation, get 500 yuan. Win a lawsuit, get a reward based on the client's emotions. The more intense their positive feelings, the more money I'd make. I was currently level 1. The system was perfect. I didn't need knowledge. I needed cash. It also solved my biggest problem. Nobody would pay me for advice right now. But with the system paying me, I could offer consultations for free. The haters in my stream would jump at the chance to talk to me. I grabbed my phone and opened the short video app. I had 100,000 followers. They were all active haters. My videos got almost no likes, but the comments were always in the thousands, all insults. I hit the go live button. My account was named Legal Vanguard Lawyer Lin. The viewer count exploded instantly. The comments flooded in. Look, our legal elite is online. He's an elite at sending clients to jail. Don't laugh, guys. I'm here to learn how to get 20 years for a parking ticket. I smiled at the camera. Hello, everyone. Today, I'm not just teaching law. I'm doing free legal consultations. If you have a problem, request a link. The chat went wild. They thought I was being cocky. Everyone wanted to see me fail. I saw a request and clicked accept. The screen split. A middle-aged man with a weathered face and a raspy voice appeared. He looked incredibly anxious. Lawyer, he asked urgently, can you help me? Lawyer Lin, I'm a professional content screener, the man began. Here's the thing. I have a video I'm not sure about. I sent it to a work group with hundreds of colleagues to ask their opinion. Does this count as the crime of distributing obscene materials? The live stream chat exploded instantly. This was a tough one. Everyone leaned in, waiting for me to trip up. I felt a slight smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. These netizens really came prepared. A normal lawyer would have struggled to give a straight answer on the spot. The comments were a battlefield of conflicting opinions, but my mind was already clear. I didn't hesitate. It's simple, I said. You're a professional screener, and even you couldn't tell if it was obscene. That proves the content doesn't meet the legal threshold for obscenity. Furthermore, you sent it to a police work group. That doesn't count as distribution in a public place. A notification pinged in my head. I had completed a legal consultation. I earned 500 yuan. Seconds later, my phone vibrated with a bank alert. 500 yuan had actually hit my account. It was real. The chat went silent for a heartbeat. My blunt, professional answer had stunned them. Wait, is there an expert here? Is he right? Someone typed. I have a master of laws, another user replied. And yeah, that's actually a valid legal interpretation. Holy crap, does this guy actually know the law? I don't believe it, another hater chimed in. Keep the questions coming, brothers. The questions started getting weirder and more aggressive. If I pay a dorm fee, isn't that a rental agreement? Why does the school get to inspect my room? Shouldn't I have privacy in a place I rent? My employee died from overwork and ruined my project schedule. How do I sue his family for damages? Since prisons are full of criminals, why don't the police just go into the prison to arrest people? I handled every single one of them with cold, professional logic. I was dismantling the haters' reality in real time. Damn, brothers, he's actually good, a comment read. Something's wrong. I think he was faking being an idiot before. He was a clown yesterday, so why is he a genius today? Just then, a new connection request popped up. I expected another troll, but the voice that came through was raspy, cautious, and trembling. Lawyer, is the consultation really free? Yes, I replied, my tone softening. You can ask me anything. The man on the other end suddenly choked up. It's my son. He's being bullied at school. It's bad. He's badly hurt. The other side even threatened us. They said if I keep pushing this, they'll make sure my son never sees another day. I don't know what to do anymore. He broke down into helpless sobs. The livestream chat went dead quiet. You could feel the weight of his despair through the speakers. Some viewers recognized the voice. Is that Uncle Dahai? Someone asked. It sounds just like him. Look at the username. It is him. Who is Uncle Dahai? A new viewer asked. There was a huge bullying case online recently, an old follower explained. His son is a student who got beaten so many times it's sickening. Multiple broken bones. Uncle Dahai took them to court, but here's the crazy part. He lost. The comments started flying. People couldn't understand how a kid with multiple fractures could lose a bullying case. Some suspected the gold medal lawyer he hired was incompetent. Others pointed out the trial was closed to the public, so no one knew the details. Maybe Uncle Dahai is lying, a skeptic wrote. In this day and age, anyone can cry on camera to get sympathy. He won't even show the court documents. I narrowed my eyes. I had just arrived in this world and didn't know the specifics of the case yet. The man, Wang Dahai, continued to sob. He was at the end of his rope. For 2 years, his son had suffered 11 broken bones, constant bruising. The boy was now spiraling into deep depression. The most infuriating part, the school and the police had classified the injuries as accidental falls. The school treated Wang Dahai like a nuisance, accusing him of just wanting a payout. He had spent his life savings on a top-tier lawyer to sue the 3 bullies. He wanted justice, but he lost. The internet turned on him. Because he couldn't prove his claims in court, people called him a fraud. They said he was using his son for clout. Wang Dahai was trapped. The court had issued a gag order preventing him from sharing trial details, claiming it would cause public unrest. If he spoke out, the bullies' families could sue him for defamation. He was drowning in silence. He saw my free consultation stream and reached out like a dying man grabbing at a straw. The chat started warning him. Uncle Dahai, don't be desperate. Find a real lawyer, not this guy. Run, Dahai. If Lin Yuan represents you, you won't just lose the case, you'll end up in jail yourself. I'm a law student, another added. This case is a mess. It's way beyond what a streamer like Lin can handle. The haters were mocking me again, convinced I was out of my depth. Wang Dahai didn't care about the comments. He just needed someone, anyone, to listen. I watched as Wang Dahai hesitated. He was searching for a lifeline, but the comments in my stream were toxic. They were calling me a fraud and telling him to run. I saw him pull up my record, his face turning pale as he scrolled through my past failures. He sighed, his shoulders slumping with disappointment. Even the high-priced lawyers from the top firms couldn't help him, so why would a disgraced streamer like me be any different? Mr. Lin, he said, his voice trembling. I think I should look for someone else. He reached for the button to end the call. I didn't panic. I just smiled. Did you sign a non-disclosure agreement? I asked calmly. Is that why you can't tell us why you lost? Because the court forbid you from sharing the trial details. His hand froze. He looked at the camera, stunned. How did you know that? I leaned back, my smile widening. I don't just know that. I know exactly why you lost your case. He didn't hang up. He stared at me, his brow furrowed in confusion. The chat was buzzing now. Some people thought I was just putting on a show for views, telling Dahai not to believe a word I said. They thought I was full of it. I ignored them. I had spent my previous life as a top-tier attorney. I didn't need a file to see the patterns. Brother Wang, I said, my voice full of confidence. If I'm not mistaken, your lawyer sued them for intentional injury. But you couldn't prove they ever actually touched your son, could you? In fact, the defense produced evidence showing your son's injuries were caused by his own falls. That's why you lost. The school, the police, and the court, they all officially ruled that your son just kept falling down on his own. The silence on the other end was deafening. Wang Dahai's eyes went wide. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. Yes, he whispered, his voice breaking. That's exactly what happened. That's why I lost. The chat exploded. The viewers couldn't believe it. They thought the idea of a kid breaking 11 bones by accidentally falling was too ridiculous to be true. They mocked me, calling it a fairy tale. But then Dahai started sobbing. You're right, he choked out. Everything you said is right. I signed a contract. I couldn't say it myself. But you figured it out. I didn't stop there. I wanted to show him I knew the whole story. You lost because you lacked physical evidence of direct contact. I continued. The bullies were smart. They didn't use direct violence. They used indirect methods to force your son to injure himself. When the defense showed videos of your son falling, the judge saw it as an accident. Your intentional injury charge became a joke. It was a guaranteed loss. The chat went quiet. A law student chimed in, admitting that if there was no proof of contact, an intentional injury charge would indeed fail. But they couldn't understand why the son wouldn't just tell the truth. I gave a small, cold laugh. It's simple. The bullies didn't have to touch him to hurt him. They knew how to play the system. And I'm betting they threatened your son so badly that he was too terrified to tell anyone what was really happening. Dahai wiped his eyes, looking at me with newfound hope. He had been told I was a hack, a loser who got kicked out of the legal profession. But I was the only person who understood his pain without him saying a word. You're right again, Dahai sobbed. My previous lawyer told me the same thing after we lost. He said our entire strategy was wrong because there was no direct violence. But he didn't know how to fix it. The viewers were stunned. Some suspected I had inside information, but others pointed out that I was an outcast with zero connections left in the city. They were starting to realize the truth. I actually knew what I was doing. "Brother Wong," I said, my voice firm, "I can win this case for you. If you trust me, come to my office. I'll tell you exactly what happened to your son and how we're going to make them pay." In my mind, the pieces were already clicking together. These school bullies thought they were clever by forcing the victim to self-harm, bypassing the legal definition of assault. They relied on the laziness of the police and the school's desire to avoid a scandal. Most lawyers would be stumped by the lack of physical evidence, but I wasn't most lawyers. Dahai didn't hesitate this time. "Okay, I'm coming to see you right now." He hung up, leaving the live stream in a frenzy. Everyone realized that the game had changed. I wasn't just a streamer anymore. I was a hunter. The chat room exploded. I watched the comments fly by, and honestly, I couldn't blame them for panicking. "Wait, is Uncle Dahai really going to hire Lin Mo?" Someone typed. "He's already suffered enough. Lin Mo, please, have a heart. Let him go." They had seen my legal analysis and admitted I knew my stuff, but theory and practice were two different worlds. To them, I wasn't a savior. I was a disaster waiting to happen. They remembered my track record. They were terrified I'd somehow manage to get the victim thrown in jail alongside the bullies. I didn't respond to the doubts. Instead, I started digging through the internet for clips of Wang Dahai's previous posts. He lived in the rural outskirts of Zhanghai. His original account had been banned for spreading rumors, but kind-hearted netizens had saved his videos. I watched a man in a dusty construction helmet sobbing as he described his son's injuries. The house behind him was crumbling. They were poor, dirt poor. He had likely spent his life savings on that last gold medal lawyer who failed him. That was why he had been so hesitant about the consultation fee. "All right, everyone," I said, looking into the camera. "I'm ending the stream here. I need to go gather evidence. Just wait for my triumphant return." The fans grew even more desperate. "Don't add to his troubles, Lawyer Lin," one wrote. "I admire your courage, but I doubt your strength." To them, my involvement was the final nail in the coffin for poor Uncle Dahai. I felt a bit helpless. My predecessor's two legendary failures had really left a mark on my reputation. But I didn't let it shake me. I closed the stream and focused. I needed to understand the laws of this world. For the most part, they were identical to my past life. While I was researching, a private message popped up. It was Dahai. He sent over the case files from his previous lawyer. His son was named Wang Lele. He was a senior at Zhanghai 5th High School, a top-tier student with a bright future. He had even skipped a grade because he was so gifted. The three bullies, Tian Guang, Su Ziyi, and Chou Tianlei, were also seniors, but they were the school's notorious thugs. Smoking, fighting, skipping class, harassing girls, they did it all. They were experienced criminals in teenage bodies, knowing exactly how to use their age as a shield. They had targeted Lele simply because he was a good student. They wanted to drag him down. They would force him to go to exciting activities after school, and Lele would return covered in bruises. The bullies claimed he just fell down. The first time it happened, Lele was brave enough to tell the truth. Dahai went to the teacher and the principal, but they just played peacemaker. It ended with a meaningless apology. The lack of consequences only made the bullies bolder. Recently, Lele's arm was broken. This time, the boy said nothing, but Dahai knew. He went to the police, but they ruled it an accident and refused to file a case. They kicked the ball back to the school. The bullies started laughing in Lele's face, threatening to kill him. Dahai finally sued them, but he lost. Now, the threats were escalating. Lele only had 6 months until the college entrance exams, but at this rate, he might not live to see them. My heart ached as I read the file. School bullying is a nightmare with no perfect solution. The victims always suffer while the system looks the other way until it's too late. In my previous life, I had spent years researching how to truly crush this problem. I had perfected a method right before that truck hit me. Now, I had a place to use it. "Maybe this is fate," I whispered, a cold smile spreading across my face. "School bullying? I'll show these scumbags what a death sentence looks like." There was no room for mercy. This wasn't just a case, it was my comeback. Meanwhile, in a damp, dimly lit shack on the edge of town, Wang Dahai finally allowed himself to smile. He walked over to the bed where his sickly wife, Li Haiju, was resting. Someone is willing to help us, he told her, his voice trembling with relief. That's wonderful, she whispered, forcing a smile. Dahai then walked over to his son's desk. Lele sat there, his left arm in a thick cast, stubbornly gripping a pen with his right hand to study. Don't worry, Lele, Dahai said, stroking the boy's hair. We'll get you back to school soon. Lele didn't speak. The innocent light in his eyes had been replaced by a hollow melancholy. Dahai, what was that lawyer's name? His wife asked from the bed. Lin Mo, Dahai replied. He told me to come to his office to talk. His wife's expression shifted. Wait, Lin Mo? Is it that legal pioneer guy? Yeah, that's him. He seemed really professional on his stream. Dahai, I heard he's a good person, but his reputation is, well, it's not good. Dahai paused. He hadn't looked into my history yet. He pulled out his phone and started searching. As he scrolled through the details of my past cases, his face went pale. Silence filled the room. He had spent 80,000 yuan, their entire emergency fund for his wife's treatment, on the last lawyer. If he hired me, and I failed like the others. Dahai, his wife asked softly. Are we still going to see him? We could sell the old house in the countryside, Li Haiju whispered, her voice barely a thread. Maybe we get a few tens of thousands of yuan. I don't want to fight this case anymore. Dahai choked back a sob. I'll go see him first. I'll see if he has a better way. If he doesn't, we'll drop it. I can't let this family fall apart completely. Back at my office, I'd just finished a container of takeout. The system had deposited a few thousand yuan into my account, so at least I wasn't starving anymore. The door creaked open. A man worn down by life walked in, leading a quiet young boy by the hand. Hello, how can I help you? I asked, falling into my professional routine. Lawyer Lin, I'm Wang Dahai. We spoke on the stream this morning. Mr. Wang, please sit. And this must be Lele. I looked at the boy. It was the middle of summer, but he was wearing long sleeves. He was trying to hide the bruises. He didn't say a word. He just stared at me with eyes that had long ago given up on hope. Don't mind him, Dahai said with a bitter smile. He hasn't talked much since it happened. It's all right. Tell me everything. I picked up a pen. I needed the details the others had missed. Dahai talked for an hour. It was exactly what I'd suspected. On paper, the case was simple. If we proved those 3 bullies caused Lele's injuries, they'd go to juvenile detention for a few years. The last lawyer said the same thing, Dahai sighed. No, you can't prove it. Lele finally spoke. His voice was cold, filled with a deep, dark cynicism. He didn't believe in me. He didn't believe in anyone. I smiled faintly. I wasn't finished, Lele. I know those injuries didn't come from them hitting you. They forced you to do dangerous things, didn't they? They made you hurt yourself. The gloom in the boy's eyes flickered. He looked at me, stunned. How did you know? I also know that if you didn't do it, they threatened to disrupt your classes. They threatened to harass the girl you like. Lele froze. Dahai turned to his son, his face pale. Lele, is that true? The boy slowly nodded. Yes, they threatened me. Why didn't you tell me? Dahai's voice cracked with grief and rage. It's no use, Dad, Lele said, his voice trembling. They have power. They have money. Let's just move away. Those bastards. I'll kill them, Dahai roared, standing up. I grabbed his arm. Calm down, Dahai. Lele is right. In the eyes of the law, what you have right now is useless. What? Is there no justice in this world? I sighed. Those 3 kids were smarter than they looked. They knew how to incite self-harm to avoid assault charges. The previous lawyer lost because the forensic evidence showed the injuries were self-inflicted. Even if we prove they coerced him, I said, they'd get a year in juvie at most. Then they'd come back and make Lele's life a living hell. It's useless. Dahai collapsed back into his chair, the light leaving his eyes. Then what do we do? I leaned in, my voice dropping to a low whisper. There is one way to solve all your problems at once. Dahai looked up. But you said it was useless. A year in juvie is useless. But what if it was the death penalty? Both of them stared at me, eyes wide with total confusion. They're just kids, Dahai stammered. They haven't reached the standard for the death penalty. I let out a cold laugh. It's only a matter of time. Dahai, do you want to give your son a future or not? Of course I do. But how? Trust me. Follow my lead, and they will get exactly what they deserve. Dahai hesitated for a second, then nodded firmly. He saw that I understood the core of the problem. He chose to believe one last time. Good, I said. Let's move. First, we need the digital market. We're buying 2 4K high-definition cameras. Dahai was baffled, but Lele seemed to be thinking deeply. We bought the gear and headed to their place on the outskirts of town. The shack was a mess. Sorry for the conditions, Lawyer Lin. Dahai said, pouring me a cup of tea. It's fine. I just need 2 rooms. I looked around. The place was dark. We'll need a high-intensity light bulb too. Dahai? Who's there? A weak voice came from the bedroom. It was Lee Haiju. It's the lawyer, honey. Lawyer Lin. Thank you for coming, she called out, her voice thin. I'm sorry I can't get up to greet you. Don't worry about it, I replied. Just rest. It was a heartbreaking scene. A dying wife, a bullied son, and a father at the end of his rope. I bought the bulb and went into the other room. Why are we putting cameras in here? Dahai asked. If you think you're going to catch them bullying Lele in our own house, you're dreaming. They aren't that stupid. I shook my head. It's not that simple. I spotted an old, well-kept dresser in the corner. The paint was fresh despite its age. That was my wife's dowry, Dahai said softly. I've kept it in good shape for her. Perfect. Right here. I mounted the 2 cameras at different angles, both pointing directly at the dresser. They were positioned to capture the face and actions of anyone standing in front of it. Then, I used some paint to camouflage the lenses until they blended perfectly with the wall. Dahai watched me, more confused than ever. Lawyer Lin, what is this for? I knew those 3 animals wouldn't usually care about an old dresser. It wasn't worth anything to them. I swapped out the dim bulb for a high-intensity one and checked the camera feed on my phone. The picture was crystal clear. That's perfect, I said. Dahai, how much money do you have left? Dahai's face fell. He looked embarrassed, probably thinking I was asking for my legal fee up front. Lawyer Lin, I only have 50,000 yuan left. I was hiding it to pay for my wife's medical treatments. I can give you 30,000 now as a retainer, but I need to keep the rest for her. If you can wait, I'll sell my house back in the village to pay the balance. I shook my head. That's not what I meant. When we win, the other side will pay my fees. Don't worry about that. Dahai looked even more confused. I just smiled. Go to the bank. Withdraw that 50,000 and put 10,000 in each of the 5 drawers of that dresser. He didn't understand, but he did it anyway. Once the money was tucked away, he turned to me. What now, Lawyer Lin? I looked at Lele. Lele, it's time to go back to school. If they bully you again, don't just take it. Beg them to stop. Tell them you'll pay them protection money. Tell them the cash is at your house, and if they want it, they have to follow you here. I pointed at the dresser. Bring them to this room. Take 10,000 from one drawer and give it to them. Do it 5 times. 1 drawer per visit. Dahai's face turned bright red with rage. Lawyer Lin, are you telling us to surrender? To give them our life savings? I won't do it. I'd rather die than give those monsters a single cent. He was breaking down, devastated that my strategy seemed to be cowardice. But Lele was different. He was quiet, thinking. Then, a spark of hope lit up his eyes, and he nodded solemnly. Lele? No. Dahai grabbed his son's shoulders. We'll move. We don't have to bow down to them. Dad, no, Lele explained quickly. I don't fully understand, but I know what they'll be doing is a crime. I finally let out a small laugh. Exactly. Lele is a smart kid. It is a crime. A major one. Dahai froze. What do you mean? I patted his shoulder. If they come into this house and take that money, it's no longer just bullying. It's home invasion and robbery. If they take all 50,000, the amount is considered huge under the law. In this jurisdiction, for a crime that severe, there's a high probability they'll face the death penalty. Dahai's eyes nearly popped out of his head. He hadn't seen that coming. But Brother Lin, Lele asked curiously, why do I have to split it up? Why not give it all at once? The corner of my mouth curled up. Multiple counts of armed home invasion and robbery with a massive total amount? That's how we ensure the maximum sentence. A cold chill ran through the room. This was my ultimate move against school bullying. But Lawyer Lin, Dahai whispered, isn't this entrapment? I waved my hand dismissively. Entrapment? No. Their own greed is what's leading them down this path. They're choosing to break the law. I'm just making sure there's a record of it. Dahai finally realized why I wanted those high-def cameras. I wanted to film the entire robbery from every angle. He knew that if those boys fell for it, I really could send them to their graves. Lele tightened his fists, his teeth clenched. I'm going back to class now. He grabbed his backpack and walked out. Dahai watched him go, his hands shaking with anxiety. I patted his shoulder again. I'm here. Everything is legal and compliant. We're law-abiding citizens, Dahai. We aren't the ones who should be afraid. While we waited, I scrolled through my phone. News of me taking Dahai's case had exploded online. The comments were brutal. Everyone thought I was a joke. Even Wang Tao from a red circle firm lost. Linimo? Give me a break. This guy just wants to be famous for failing. He's the evil star of the legal world. There's no way he wins this. Nobody believed in me. At the same time, over at Yonyuan Law Firm, my old workplace, the mood was very different. It was a rising firm filled with elite graduates and an 89% win rate. They were currently holding a partners meeting. Thank God we kicked Lin Mo out when we did, Huang Jianqing, a senior partner, said with a smirk. If he were still here, he'd be dragging our reputation through the mud with this case. The other partners laughed. Exactly. A bullying case with zero profit and a 90% chance of losing? Only an idiot would take that. Dahai must be desperate to hire someone as low-level as Lin Mo. Huang Jianqing nodded. He had felt a tiny bit of regret about firing me so abruptly, fearing it made the firm look heartless. But now, he felt like a genius. Wait, one partner suggested. Should we take the other side of this case? We could go up against Lin Mo. It's a guaranteed win. Huang Jianqing considered it. To him, law was only about two things, money and fame. My son just became a licensed lawyer, he said. This would be a perfect first win for him. Let's contact the defendants. Meanwhile, at Junyong Law Firm, a true red circle powerhouse with a 93% win rate, the atmosphere was buzzing. This was where Wang Tao, the lawyer Dahai had previously hired, worked. Hey, Wang, a colleague shouted across the office. That Lin Mo guy took over your case. If he actually wins, your gold medal title is going in the trash. Wang Tao looked up from his files, his brow furrowed. He was still bitter about his loss. Who took it? Lin Mo. You know, the legal pioneer. Wang Tao's heart skipped a beat. A surge of blood rushed to his head, turning his face a deep, angry crimson. He was a gold medal lawyer at a red circle firm, a legal elite destined for a partnership. How could he be compared to trash like me? It was bad enough his firm lost the case, but letting me take over was a calculated insult. If he actually wins this, I'll call him Daddy. Wang Tao roared. Great. I've recorded that, a colleague laughed. Don't regret it later, Counselor Wang. The office erupted in mockery. Online, the legal community was just as skeptical. Even Luo Daxing, a famous legal influencer, weighed in. His take was surprisingly neutral. He claimed I was just an average rookie who had suffered a string of bad luck. He told his followers he was actually looking forward to seeing if I could pull off a miracle. The comments weren't so kind. The top-voted reply said, as long as Lawyer Lin doesn't accidentally send his own clients to jail, I'll consider it a win. I saw the comments but didn't care. I checked my watch. It was almost time for school to let out. I grabbed Dahai, hailed a taxi, and headed straight for Jianhai No. 5 Middle School. I wanted to see these three little animals for myself. We arrived before the final bell. A group of teenagers with dyed hair and arrogant faces were loitering outside the gates. They were tall, maybe 175 centimeters, and looked physically strong for their age. They leaned against three modified electric scooters, the kind local punks called ghost fires. Dahai pointed at the three in the center, his teeth gritted so hard I thought they might break. That's them, he whispered. Tian Guang, Su Ziyi, and Xiao Tianlei. Tian Guang had bright yellow hair and a cigarette dangling from his lips while a lackey lit it for him. Su Ziyi had green hair, and Xiao Tianlei's was blue. They were laughing loudly, their voices carrying over the street. Wang Lele hasn't shown up lately, Tian Guang sneered. We lost our favorite toy. We already broke him, the blue-haired Xiao Tianlei added. Let's find another poor top student to mess with. Those nerds are all cowards. Tian Guang laughed, looking incredibly proud of himself. Our methods are invincible. No one can touch us. We're outlaws, brothers. We've got a few more years of fun before we turn 18 and the law actually matters. Exactly, the green-haired Suzy chimed in. Making those smart kids act like dogs for us is the best. I want them to know that being a thug is better than studying. Books are for losers. They burst into a chorus of wild, ugly laughter. Dahai's face twisted in rage. He balled his fists, ready to charge them, but I grabbed his wrist and pulled him into a nearby small restaurant. Believe in me, Brother Wong, I said, my grip firm. He was shaking with fury, but eventually, he nodded and sat down. I watched the gang through the window. These weren't confused kids. They were fully aware of what they were doing. They knew exactly how to exploit their age to avoid consequences. My eyes turned cold. If the law wouldn't change for them, I would force it to change. I wanted every bully in the country to realize that the Protection of Minors Act wasn't a universal shield. The school bell rang. Students flooded out, looking for snacks before evening study sessions. The atmosphere changed instantly. The three bullies straightened up, blowing smoke and putting on their tough guy personas. The regular students saw them and immediately diverted their paths, eyes fixed on the ground. The bullies loved it. They whistled at girls and laughed at the fear they inspired. Then, they spotted a target. They blocked the path of a slim student wearing glasses. Yo, if it isn't Jiao Wendong, the top of the class, Tian Ingguang said, throwing an arm around the boy's shoulders. Jiao Wendong flinched, his face pale. Studying must be exhausting. Let the brothers take you out for some fun. Tian, Brother Tian, Jiao Wendong stammered. My mom, she's waiting for me for dinner. Don't worry, we'll feed you, Tian Ingguang said, dragging him toward the scooters. I watched, knowing this was exactly how it started for Lele. I was about to step in when a familiar figure rushed out from the school gates and pulled Jiao Wendong away. It was Wang Lele. Brother Tian, I'll go with you, Lele said, his voice trembling but determined. Let Wendong go home. His mom will kill him if he's late. Tian Ingguang let go of the other boy and patted Lele's cheek with a mocking grin. Oh, look who's back. Lele, you finally decided to show up. The blue-haired Xiao Tianlei walked over. Why pick one when we can have two? Let's take both scholars with us. Wait, you're bullying them again. A girl named Wu Jia ran over, her hands on her hips, trying to be brave. Bullying? We're just hanging out, Tian Ingguang laughed. Maybe you want to join us, Wu Jia? You can give me some private tutoring at my place. The gang roared with laughter. Lele frowned and pulled Tian Ingguang aside. What's this? You trying to be a hero for Wendong and the girl? Tian Ingguang sneered. Lele was clearly terrified, but then he spotted me sitting in the restaurant. I caught his eye and gave him a small, reassuring nod. It seemed to give him the courage he needed. He put on a fake, subservient smile. Brother Tian, don't mess with them. I'll pay you protection money instead. Money? Tian Ingguang looked interested, then scoffed. Your family is broke. You even tried to sue me. How much could you possibly have? I found where my dad keeps his pension savings, Lele said, his eyes welling up with fake tears. I can give it to you. Just please, stop hitting us. Tian Ingguang's eyes lit up. Now we're talking. Fine. 1,000 yuan per person, per week. Lele nodded quickly. I can do that. But the money is at my house. I have to take you there to get it. Tian Ingguang laughed and turned to his friends. See? We broke him. He knows he can't win, so now he's trying to buy our favor. He's a smart one. The three of them didn't suspect a thing. In their eyes, Lele was a conquered dog. They hopped on their scooters, pulled Lele onto one of them, and sped off toward his home. They had no idea they were driving straight into my trap. Lele, Wu Jia cried out, her eyes brimming with tears. She told me how Lele was always like this. Every time someone was bullied, he was the one to stand up. He protected all of them, yet none of them knew how to help him in return. As she spoke, she broke down into sobs. Beside her, Jiao Wendong let out a long, heavy sigh. He began punching his own chest in a fit of self-loathing. He hated his own cowardice. He hated that he didn't have the courage to resist those thugs, leaving his best friend to fall into such a deep abyss. Back inside the restaurant, Wang Dahai looked at me anxiously. Lawyer Lin, what do we do now? I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. We follow them back. But don't let them see you. We'll watch through the monitors. But Lele, I didn't see you go in there. Dahai stammered. I gave him a calm smile. Don't worry, Brother Wong. You have a very smart son. He can handle this. Watching Lele's performance, his composure and his sense of responsibility, I finally understood why he was covered in scars. This boy was using every ounce of his courage to shield his friends and classmates. It didn't take long for Tian Ingguang and his gang to arrive at the house. Dahai and I sat in a rest area behind the building, staring at the live feed on my phone. Lele's mother, Li Haiju, was the only one home. In my mind, she was the final chance for redemption I had set for these boys. If they still chose to extort protection money despite seeing the family's miserable condition, then their consciences were truly black to the core. The four figures appeared on the screen. The audio picked up Lele's trembling voice. Brother Tian, I'll pay for the first month now, Lele said, his face a mask of pure terror. Fine, 8,000 for a month. Hand it over fast. Tian Ingguang's eyes gleamed with greed. Lele opened a drawer and pulled out a stack of cash. He counted out 8,000 yuan right in front of them and handed it over. He tried to put the remaining 2,000 back in the drawer, but Tian Ingguang snatched it away instantly. Actually, Tian Ingguang laughed, fanning the bills. Protection money just went up to 10,000 a month. The three of them stared at the money, their eyes glowing with predatory hunger. They turned and left without looking back. From the other room, Li Haiju's weak voice drifted through the monitor. Lele, did your classmates come over? You should treat them well. Lele stood in the room, silent. His eyes were wet. His mother was always so gentle, yet she had no idea these people were the demons ruining his life. He didn't say much. He just glanced briefly at the hidden camera lens. All right, Brother Wong, I said, patting Dahai on the shoulder. He was already weeping. I'm going back to organize the materials. We can officially file the lawsuit now. Will we get the money back? He choked out. Don't worry. They'll be on their knees begging you to take their compensation soon enough. I left the area, but I didn't go straight back to the office. I went to accidentally run into the trio in a secluded alley where they were busy counting their loot. I pulled my baseball cap low, acting like a random passerby. As I walked past, I purposely dropped a pack of expensive cigarettes. Tian Ingguang lunged for it. That's mine. Leave it. I acted confused, but he grabbed the pack, hopped on his scooter, and sped off, mocking me over his shoulder. That's robbery. I shouted after them, feigning rage. Go ahead and sue us if you're not happy about it. Tian Ingguang yelled back. Once they were gone, a small smile touched my lips. I hadn't made a mistake. I was simply collecting a little extra evidence that would be very useful in court. I retrieved a second phone I had hidden nearby to record the encounter. The footage was perfect. Now, I just had to wait for them to come back for the rest of the money. I knew they would. Once people like that taste sweetness, they can't stop. I could have called the police right then, but it wasn't enough. One robbery of 10,000 yuan might get them 10 years, but with their age, they'd likely get a light sentence or early parole. But 5 counts of robbery? Even the heavens couldn't save them from that. Why didn't I report the first one? Simple. Lele was too scared to tell anyone. Back at the firm, I started a live stream. Thanks to the recent controversy, my viewership exploded. The moment I went live, the chat was a wall of text. Lawyer Lin, please leave Uncle Dahai alone. They've suffered enough. Don't pull any of your usual tricks. Just file a normal suit. You scoundrel, you still dare to go live? Tell us the progress. Don't worry, guys. Dahai probably saw through him and didn't sign the contract. I chuckled and held the signed legal agreement up to the camera. Don't worry, everyone. The contract is signed. This is a happy occasion. The chat went nuclear. It's over. My last bit of hope is dead. Legal pioneer, I'll send you a rocket gift if you just drop the case. Don't ruin that poor family. I pressed my lips together to hide a smile. These netizens meant well. If the original Lin Mo were handling this, he really would have ruined it. But I had different plans. All right, if you have legal questions, feel free to ask, I said. Since I was live, I might as well make some money. I expected to be insulted during the call-ins, but surprisingly, people were actually asking about intentional injury and school bullying. It felt like they were trying to help me prepare for the case. One user commented, "Since we can't stop Lawyer Lin from being an idiot, let's at least give him a hand." At the same time, over at the prestigious Yonyuan law firm, a meeting was taking place. President Tian, that Lin Mo has agreed to represent Wang Dahai. Leave the defense to us. It's a guaranteed win. The speaker was Huang Jianxing, a senior partner. He was talking to a middle-aged man with a thick gold chain and a protruding belly. This was Tian Zhongren, Tian Ingguang's father. He owned several parts factories and was worth about 50 million yuan, a classic nouveau riche bully. Fine, Tian Zhongren grunted. But the other firms I talked to said this is an open and shut case. I'll give you 5,000 for the retainer. Huang Jianxing's eye twitched. Factory owners were always so stingy. Just because it was a guaranteed win didn't mean his time was cheap. But it didn't matter. This was a perfect case to pad his son's record. Huang Xian, come in and sign the papers, he called out. A polished young man in glasses entered. He looked about 24. President Tian, this is my son. A law graduate from Stanford. Good, Tian Zhongren said coldly. I'll leave it to you. Just make sure you crush Wang Dahai's hopes once and for all. To him, Dahai was just a nuisance. So what if his son bullied the kid a little? The kid should have just endured it. To sue him a second time? He needed to be taught a lesson. After the contract was signed and Tian Zhongren left, Huang Xian frowned. Dad, why are you making me take a case like this? Against a trash lawyer like Lin Mo? It's beneath me. My classmates will laugh. Huang Jianxing laughed. You're just starting. Don't worry about the prestige. This case is just a tiny stepping stone to build your win rate. In the top circles of the legal world, no one cares what the case was about. If you win, you're a gold medal lawyer. And so, the countdown began. The next 3 days would change everything. I spent the next few days live streaming to answer legal questions, while keeping a constant eye on the hidden cameras at Leilei's house. Just as I predicted, Tian Ingguang and his 2 lackeys were getting greedy. Their visits became more frequent, first every other day, then every day, until the 3rd day when they finally drained the full 50,000 yuan. When Leilei told them there was no money left, Tian Ingguang lost his temper. He kicked the boy hard, then trashed the room searching for more cash before storming out. During those 3 days, I did my homework on their families. Only Tian Ingguang came from money. His family was wealthy, yet he still felt the need to rob a struggling child. He wasn't just a bully, he was a monster. Then, something happened that made Wang Dahai and Leilei tremble with rage. Tian Ingguang used that stolen money to throw a lavish birthday party. I heard he spent 30,000 yuan on it because he felt his actual 18th birthday a few days prior hadn't been grand enough. I'm going to tear that kid apart. Dahai roared, his face turning purple. I didn't get angry. I smiled. Lin, what are you laughing at? Dahai snapped. I'm about to explode here. I patted his shoulder. Don't be impatient. Think about it. He just held a makeup party for his 18th birthday. That proves he was legally an adult when he broke into your home to steal that money. Dahai froze, the realization sinking in. You mean, the penalty will be higher? Exactly, I said. The minor protection law no longer applies to him. He committed a felony as an adult. The sentence will be devastating. I had all the evidence I needed, but I wanted to see their faces one last time. I wanted to see if they could still smile when faced with the truth. I told Dahai to contact the school and the police for one final mediation meeting under the guise of school bullying. The next day, we met in the school conference room. Because Dahai had been making such a scene lately, the authorities actually showed up. The school sent a vice principal, and the police sent Officer Chun, a stern man in his 30s. Tian Zhongren, the bald tycoon, stormed in with his son's 2 friends' parents. He glared at us, flanked by a young lawyer who looked at me with pure disdain. That was Huang Xian, the Stanford grad. He didn't even bother to greet me. He just sat there with an air of supreme arrogance. I'm the legal representative for Mr. Wang. I began calmly. We're here to resolve the bullying incident. Bullying? Tian Zhongren roared. The court already ruled on this. Your son fell on his own. You're just a jobless loser trying to scam us for money. Don't waste our time. The other parents chimed in, sneering at Dahai as if he were dirt under their boots. Dahai clenched his fists so hard his knuckles turned white. The vice principal cleared his throat, looking at Dahai with feigned pity. Mr. Wang, the case is settled. I understand you're upset, but you need to accept the facts. Even Officer Chen leaned forward, his voice harsh. Look, Lawyer Lin, stop feeding this man false hope. The case is closed. If you keep wasting police resources by reporting this, I'll have you detained for disturbing public order. Dahai stood up, trembling with fury as he looked at the circle of people pressuring him. I narrowed my eyes and let out a cold laugh. I had given them a chance. If they had shown a shred of remorse, or if the school had tried to actually help, I might have stuck to the coerced self-harm angle to get a simple assault conviction. But seeing their arrogance, their total lack of humanity, I realized there was no point in talk. Fine, I said, standing up. If that's your attitude, there's nothing left to say. We'll see you in court. Go ahead and sue. Huang Xian called out mockingly as I walked toward the door. When you lose again, don't come back and waste our time. He really thought I had nothing. I didn't even look back. Outside, Dahai was shaking. Lawyer Lin. Don't worry, Brother Wang. I've prepared everything. We filed a lawsuit this afternoon. Do it, Dahai hissed through gritted teeth. I don't care what it takes. Back at the office, I began finalizing the documents. I decided to use a strategy similar to a previous case, mostly because it was efficient. I added a charge of robbery to the complaint. With the evidence I had, it was a guaranteed kill. Proving bullying through self-harm was one thing, but the sentence for that was too light. These kids hadn't just bullied Lele. They had committed multiple counts of violent home invasion robbery involving significant sums of money, and in one instance, a weapon. Even a seasoned gang leader would tremble at those charges, let alone 3 teenagers. That afternoon, I officially filed the lawsuit. The next day, Huang Xian received the summons at his firm. He looked at the documents and laughed. Intentional injury again? They never learn. He pointed to the compensation claim. They're asking for 1 million yuan in damages and medical fees. What a joke. They're dreaming. He paused, noticing a small detail. Wait, they added a robbery charge? Do they think they found new evidence for that? Tian Zhongren, who was sitting in the office, slammed his hand on the desk. 1 million yuan? I won't give those paupers a single cent. Lawyer Huang, what is this robbery nonsense? Could they actually have something? Huang Jianxing looked at the documents and sneered. If they could actually win this, it would be a miracle. But he had to be sure. He turned to Tian Yingguang and his son, who were both in the room. Is this true? The father asked, staring at his son. Tell the truth. Did you actually rob them? No, of course not. The boy snapped back. I'm not an idiot. Why would I rob anyone? The kid didn't see it as robbery. In his head, Lele had just given him protection money. To a bully like him, there was a big difference between taking something and being handed it. Huang Jianxing's face twisted into a crafty smile. If they're bold enough to bring it up, they might have something. We need to be ready. He knew Lin Mo's skill level. He was 90% sure there was no new evidence, and that Lin Mo was just bluffing to scare them. But Huang saw an opportunity. He wanted to squeeze more money out of Tian Zhongren for legal fees. Who would turn down extra cash? Tian Zhongren got nervous immediately. Lawyer Huang, please look into it. I'll increase your retainer to 50,000 yuan. Nothing can go wrong with my son. He's going to college. He's going to be an official one day. Huang Jianxing finally smiled. Don't worry. We've got this. Once the Tians left, Huang Xian let out a small laugh. 50,000 for a case this boring? It's a guaranteed win. Don't get complacent, his father warned. Stay sharp. Even if the opponent is a weakling like Lin Mo, you never know if he'll pull a rabbit out of his hat. Remember what Luo Daxian said? Lin Mo might try to win by surprise. Huang Xian burst out laughing. Win by surprise? Him. They both knew Lin Mo was a clown. The robbery charge was likely just a desperate attempt to fill space on the page, like a student writing nonsense on an exam just to avoid leaving it blank. They shared another loud laugh at Lin Mo's expense. Huang Xian was riding high on confidence. Since the case had so much buzz, he decided to capitalize on it. He applied for a live-stream trial. The Jianghai High Court, seeing the massive public interest in this school bullying case, approved the request immediately. Before the trial, the court attempted mediation. As expected, the bully's side refused. Huang Xian even went online to talk big, claiming he was going to clean up the trash left behind by Lin Mo's old firm and prove the innocence of the 3 boys. Back in my office, I could barely hide my grin. Huang Xian was a special kind of talent. He actually applied for a live stream. He wanted the whole country to watch while I proved his clients committed home invasion robbery? Fine by me. The day of the trial arrived quickly. The courthouse entrance was swarmed. Reporters, bloggers, and camera crews were everywhere. When Huang Xian and his team arrived, the journalists pounced. Lawyer Huang, have you seen the comments online? Why are you defending bullies? The other side claims to have new evidence. What are your chances of winning? This is your first big case. Are you just here to pad your stats because your opponent is Lin Mo? Huang Xian soaked it all up. He loved the attention. He held his head high, radiating arrogance. I've seen the comments, he told the crowd. First, there is no substantive evidence that these three boys did anything wrong. As for my chances, they lost last time, and they'll lose again today. To be honest, I don't think Lawyer Lin is very professional. My firm was right to kick him out. Watch the live stream, everyone. You'll see the truth. He marched up the steps like a general headed for a guaranteed victory. A few minutes later, I arrived. Lin Mo is here. Get him. The reporters shifted their focus. I was more famous than Huang Xian, but mostly for all the wrong reasons. They surrounded me instantly. Lawyer Lin, why are you doing this? Is this just a revenge plot against your old firm? People say you're going to ruin Dahai and Lele. How do you respond? One reporter was even more aggressive. Your skill level is known to be low. Are you only taking this case because you're starving for work? You're going up against the son of a senior partner at Yongyuan. Do you realize you're fighting the entire firm? They didn't stop there. They shoved microphones in Dahai's face. Dahai, why did you hire a disgraced lawyer? Is it because the first lawyer took all your money? I cleared my throat. The questions were toxic, but I didn't care. I looked directly into the cameras. Our firm, Xuanhe Law, is extremely confident. We will win this case. And if anyone else needs legal help, feel free to contact us. The reporters blinked. I sounded like I was filming a commercial. I was. I walked past the confused crowd and into the building with a calm smile. Inside the waiting area, Dahai's knuckles were white. He was shaking. The memory of our last defeat was clearly haunting him. I, on the other hand, felt a strange sense of calm. The laws in this world are different. They are absolute. Judges here don't care about politics or backroom deals. They care about the letter of the law. If you lose, it's because you didn't explain the statutes well enough. I had studied the presiding judge, Sun Hua. He was the vice president of the Jianghai court, a man in his 40s with a PhD in law. He looked kind, almost fatherly, but he had handled thousands of cases without a single wrongful judgment. He was the perfect person to hear this. A court official verified my identity. It was time. Huang Xian walked in, chin up, refusing to even look at me. We took our seats. The clerk began reading the court rules. All rise. Judge Sun Hua and two other members of the bench entered. He picked up the gavel and struck the block. The court is now in session. At that exact moment, across the internet, legal commentators and thousands of viewers tuned in to the live stream. The trap was set. The court was live. Thousands of viewers flooded the streaming rooms, and the atmosphere was electric. This wasn't just a trial, it was a spectacle. In the offices of Yongyuan law firm, Huang Jiansheng and his colleagues leaned in, eyes glued to the screens. Even Wang Tao, the lawyer who had failed this case before, was watching from his desk. But it wasn't just the professionals. At Jianghai 5th Middle School, Lele's friends, Wu Jia and Jiao Wendong, huddled together. Wu Jia's knuckles were white. He knew the pain Lele had endured. He whispered a silent prayer that today, finally, the light would break through the darkness. On the most popular legal stream, Professor Luo Daxing was providing live commentary to tens of thousands of people. The chat was moving too fast to read. One comment stood out. Professor Luo, bullies across the country are watching this. If Lin Mo loses again, will it just prove that anyone can use these evil methods to escape the law? The chat went silent. It was a terrifying thought. If I failed, I wasn't just losing a case. I was giving every bully in the country a roadmap to get away with it. People began to pray that I was secretly a genius who had been playing dumb just to grab attention. But those who had seen my previous track record weren't holding their breath. Luo Daxing stayed quiet. He knew the stakes. To win, I had to prove the physical bullying actually happened. If I couldn't, history would simply repeat itself. Inside the courtroom, the identity verification was complete. Judge Sun Hua struck his gavel. The sound echoed through the silent room. The plaintiff may now state the facts, reasons, and claims for this appeal. I sat at the plaintiff's bench and flipped through my files. I knew this was my chance to flip my reputation and protect the vulnerable. I stood up, my voice steady. My claims are as follows. First, I request that the defendants be charged with intentional injury. My client suffered multiple fractures caused by the defendant's deliberate actions. Second, I request the defendants be charged with robbery. My client was repeatedly robbed of his belongings. Third, I request compensation for my client, Wang Lele. Due to the long-term physical abuse resulting in broken ribs, arms, and legs, his mental and physical health has been shattered. I am seeking 1 million yuan in medical expenses and mental damages. I didn't stop there. Fourth, the defendants repeatedly insulted my client in a heinous manner. I demand a public apology, delivered with sincere attitude, for no less than 30 consecutive days. Fifth, the defendants must cover all legal fees for both this trial and the previous one. The courtroom went dead silent. Then, the live chat exploded. Everyone was confused. My claims sounded almost exactly like Wang Tao's failed attempt, but with 2 insane additions, robbery and a 1 million yuan payout. The lawyers watching online were losing their minds. They thought I had gone insane. Robbery? Lele never had a cent on him. How could he be robbed? And 1 million yuan? Even if I won the injury charge, no court would award that much. To them, I looked like a greedy clown chasing a fantasy. Luo Daxing looked dazed. He couldn't figure out my angle. Was the robbery charge just a distraction? Was I hiding a breakthrough on the intentional injury charge? He told his viewers to stay calm and wait for the evidence, but even he sounded skeptical. Back at Yonyuan law firm, one of the partners burst out laughing. Robbery? Is he trying to get himself disbarred for making false claims? He's just doing this for the views. Huang Jianxing shook his head, feeling almost embarrassed that he'd sent his son to fight someone this incompetent. Wang Tao was laughing even harder in his office. He copied my homework and added a bunch of nonsense. Good luck, great lawyer Lin. In the courtroom, Judge Sun Hua's fatherly expression vanished. He looked at me with a stern, warning glare, his mouth tightening as if he wanted to scold me right there. Huang Xian, the defense lawyer, didn't hide his smirk. He leaned back, looking at me like I was a joke. Plaintiff's lawyer, please present your evidence for these injuries and robberies. If you can't, I'll be suing you for defamation against my clients. I looked at him and felt a thin, cold smile pull at the corners of my mouth. I'm sorry, I said calmly. If I have evidence to show, it won't be for your benefit. You have no right to demand evidence from me, I said, my voice cutting through the courtroom tension. I didn't even look at the defense lawyer. Instead, I turned directly to the judge. Presiding judge, the opposing counsel is openly threatening me in an attempt to obstruct the legal process. I move for the defense lawyer to be removed from his seat. Huang Xian actually flinched. He stared at me, his eyes wide with disbelief. He looked like he wanted to scream. Is this guy insane? Who threatened him? Judge Sun Hua didn't hesitate. He slammed his gavel down. Motion denied. It is not yet time for the defense to speak. One warning for the defense. Huang Xian's mouth twitched violently. He was an elite Stanford graduate, a top-tier lawyer, and he had just been reprimanded because of a nobody like me. I could see the fury boiling behind his eyes, but he forced himself to calm down. He probably thought I was just some low-level street lawyer using cheap tricks, because I had no real case. He likely figured that if I couldn't prove the robbery, I'd be the one in handcuffs for perjury. He leaned back, a smug look returning to his face. He thought he'd already won. Judge Sun Hua looked at me, his expression grave. Lawyer Lin, I must warn you. If your filing has no factual or legal basis, if you are presenting false evidence, the prosecution will charge you with perjury. You will face criminal liability. Are you certain you want to proceed? The live stream comments went wild. People were sweating on my behalf, wondering if I was really about to throw my life away on a fake robbery charge. I understand, Judge, I said, my voice steady and confident. I take full responsibility for every word I say and every piece of evidence I submit. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Everyone was dying to know what kind of robbery evidence I could possibly have. Silence. Manhwa barked, hitting the gavel again. We will now hear the defense's response. Huang Xian stood up, smirking. To him, this was a walk in the park. Our response is simple. First, we reject all charges brought by Wang Dahai against my clients. We also request that the court discipline the plaintiff's lawyer for his flagrant disregard for legal integrity. Second, because these slanderous accusations of school bullying have damaged my clients' reputations, we demand 600,000 yuan in compensation. He sat down, looking satisfied. Defense claims noted, the judge said. Plaintiff, please present your legal and factual evidence. Every eye in the room locked onto me. I didn't flinch. Before I submit the physical evidence, I request that my client, Lele, describe the bullying he endured. Request granted, the judge replied. Lele stood up. He looked better than the last time I saw him, but his hands were shaking. I gently patted his hand, giving him a reassuring nod. He took a deep breath and started talking. He described being forced into dangerous sports that caused his injuries. As he spoke, a wave of confusion hit the gallery and the viewers online. Back at his office, Wang Tao stared at the screen, his brow furrowing. He remembered this. He had been the lawyer for the first trial, and Lele was saying the exact same things, word for word. The viewers noticed too. Wait, this is the same testimony from the first failed trial, someone commented. Is Lin Mo just copying the old lawyer's homework because he's incompetent? The gavel fell again. Plaintiff's lawyer, proceed with your statement. I nodded and pulled out a file. Based on my client's testimony, the defendants repeatedly threatened and harmed him, which constitutes the crime of intentional injury. Wang Tao, watching from his computer, nearly fell out of his chair. He pulled up his old case files and compared them to what I was saying. Are you kidding me? Those are my lines. He's literally reading my old script. I kept reading, my face full of unearned confidence. The courtroom went silent. It was awkward. Huang Xian covered his mouth, trying to hide his laughter. He thought I was a joke, a hack who couldn't find new evidence, so he just recycled the old, losing argument. Even the legal experts watching the stream were baffled. Luo Daxing looked at the camera, scratching his head. I don't get it. If he uses the same argument, the defense just uses the same counter-argument and wins instantly. Does he have a hidden ace, or is he really this bad? In the defendant's seats, the three bullies, Tian Ingguang and his friends, didn't even try to hide their contempt. One of them looked at Lele and made a throat-slitting gesture. They weren't afraid at all. They were enjoying this. Judge Sun Hua looked disappointed. His opinion of me was hitting rock bottom. He sighed and struck the gavel. Plaintiff, move on to the evidence regarding the robbery charge. The room went still. This was the moment. Certainly, presiding judge, I said, a cold glint in my eyes. I have a video recording related to the robbery. I request permission to play it. The judge's eyes widened. Permission granted. The room held its breath. A video? No one saw that coming. The room held its breath. Was the intentional injury charge just an appetizer? Was the real killing blow hidden here? The court officer took my USB drive and plugged it into the computer. Every eye in the courtroom fixed on the large screen at the front, filled with anticipation. Huang Xian, the defense lawyer, frowned. Where did a robbery video come from? He shot a look at the three bullies, but Tian Ingguang just shook his head. In his memory, they had never actually forced Lele to hand over cash. They were careful. The screen flickered to life. The footage was shaky at first, then stabilized into a first-person perspective. A pack of expensive cigarettes fell out of a pocket onto the ground. The person filming, me, didn't seem to notice and kept walking. Suddenly, three figures appeared in the frame and scooped up the pack. Hey, that's mine. Put it down. My voice came from the recording, sounding panicked and desperate. The leader, a kid with dyed yellow hair, smirked as he hopped onto his electric scooter. We found this. You can't prove it's yours. We're leaving. The other two laughed loudly, following him as they sped away. You're committing robbery. I shouted in the video, sounding completely out of breath. Haha, we just picked it up, the yellow-haired kid yelled back over his shoulder. If you don't like it, go ahead and sue us. The video ended. The three kids on screen were undeniably Tian Ingguang and his crew. Silence filled the courtroom, followed by a wave of confusion. Was this the big evidence? Presiding judge, I said, standing tall. These 3 individuals brazenly robbed me of a pack of Furongwang cigarettes worth 30 yuan. From any legal angle, this constitutes robbery. The courtroom erupted. In the live stream chat, the comments were moving so fast they were a blur. People were stunned, not by my brilliance, but by my perceived stupidity. Is this a joke? One comment read. You dropped the cigarettes yourself? You even filmed yourself not picking them up. Any lawyer could rip this apart in 100 ways. The legal experts were just as baffled. Luo Daxing sighed into his microphone. This doesn't meet the criteria for robbery. At most, it's illegal possession of lost property, but the amount is too low. Plus, the pack was open. You can't even prove there were cigarettes inside. This is embarrassing. In the defendant's seats, Wang Tao was literally doubling over with laughter. Huang Xian actually looked relieved. He had expected a hidden ace, but this was a joke. He could win this case with his eyes closed. I didn't look at the lawyers. I kept my eyes fixed on the 3 bullies. I knew exactly what I was doing. I knew this evidence was trash. I just wanted to see their reaction. I wanted to give them one last chance to show a shred of remorse, to see if they'd be intimidated into a confession. But they weren't. They were smirking at me. I have finished my statement, I said coldly. Judge Sun Hua sighed and nodded toward the defense. The plaintiff has submitted evidence. Defense, you may respond. Huang Xian didn't even look at his notes. He stood up with total confidence. First, regarding the claim that my clients coerced Wang Lele into self-harm. That is a baseless oral accusation with no physical proof. Second, this robbery is a farce. If the cigarettes have value, it's a minor civil matter of lost property. But since the pack was open, for all we know, it was an empty box. There is no value, and therefore, no crime. He turned to the judge, his voice growing sharper. Presiding judge, I believe Attorney Lin Mo does not understand the dignity of this court. I suspect he is intentionally wasting legal resources and everyone's time. The public sentiment flipped instantly. Those who had hoped I would be a hero now felt betrayed. The students at middle school number 5, who had been victims of these 3 monsters, lowered their heads in despair. They thought the bullies had won again. If he doesn't have anything else, Luo Daxing said solemnly on the stream, this case is over. And if these 3 walk, every bully in the country will use their methods as a blueprint. The law will be powerless. Back in the courtroom, Huang Xian finished his rebuttal and sat down, wearing a triumphant grin. The 3 bullies were actually whispering and giggling now. They looked at me with pure contempt. Their hearts were pitch black. My last bit of mercy vanished. If they wouldn't repent, then they deserved the maximum penalty. My expression turned ice cold. I thought you might recognize your mistakes, I said, my voice echoing through the silent room. But here you are, even more arrogant than before. Do you really think I have no way to deal with school bullies like you? Huang Xian jumped up. Presiding judge, the plaintiff's attorney is openly threatening my clients. Order, Judge Sun Hua barked, striking his gavel. Attorney Lin, control yourself. This is a court of law, not a place for emotional outbursts. This is your first warning. The live stream chat went wild. He's lost it. He's just angry because he's losing. But I wasn't angry. I was ready. I looked at the judge, then back at the 3 monsters in the dock. The trap was finally set. From a certain perspective, I had performed beyond expectations. At the very least, I hadn't managed to get my own clients, the Wang family, thrown in jail yet. But nobody believed I could turn this around. My performance throughout the trial had been, frankly, garbage. And that was exactly when I raised my hand. Presiding judge, I said calmly. I made a mistake in my previous evidence submission. I am now applying to supplement the record with new evidence. I believe the defendants, Tian Ingguang and his 2 accomplices, committed aggravated burglary and robbery against my client. The courtroom froze. Aggravated burglary? Even Judge Sun Hua looked stunned. He clearly had no idea what kind of trick I was trying to pull now, but he granted the request. The livestream chat erupted. Burglary? Is he serious? Maybe they stole a bucket of water, and he's trying to call it a heist. Give it up, Lin. It's over. Even the legal expert Luo Daxing looked skeptical. No one believed I had anything left. Then, the large screen in the courtroom flickered to life. A grainy, dilapidated bedroom appeared. 4 figures were visible. Based on their hair and builds, the audience instantly recognized them, the three bullies and little Lele. The image was incredibly sharp. The lighting was perfect. In the video, Lele looked terrified. He reached into a dresser drawer with trembling hands and pulled out a thick stack of cash. He counted a portion out and handed it to Tian Ingguang. The audio picked up Lele's shaky voice mentioning protection money. A second later, Tian Ingguang snatched the remaining stack of cash right out of Lele's hands. Heh, protection money is 10,000 a month now. Tian Ingguang's voice rang out, crystal clear. The camera captured everything. Their greedy eyes, their arrogant smirks, the way they snatched the money. It was filmed from 2 different angles, framed so perfectly it felt staged. The 3 of them walked out of the room, laughing. The screen went black. The silence in the court was deafening. Judge Sun Hua and the other officials stared at the screen with wide eyes. Huang Xian, who had been casually sipping water, spat it out all over his desk. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. "Wait," I said, my voice cutting through the shock. "There's more." The video resumed. The date stamp showed the following day. The 3 boys appeared again, taking another stack of cash from Lele. The scene shifted again to the day after that. 2 separate clips played. They had come twice in one day to collect. When the video finally ended, the courtroom was as still as a tomb. I let the silence hang for a moment. Then I turned to the judge. Presiding judge, on April 25th, 26th, and 27th, Tian Ingguang and his accomplices entered the Wang residence 5 times under the guise of protection money. They forcibly took 50,000 yuan. Their actions constitute aggravated burglary and robbery. Given the frequency and the large sum involved, I am requesting the death penalty. The room exploded. The death penalty? The viewers in the live stream went from despair to pure adrenaline. Where was this evidence the whole time? Lawyer Lin is a god. I'm sorry for doubting you, Lin. On his stream, Luo Daxing sat in stunned silence for a long time. He realized exactly what I had done. The high-definition cameras, the multiple angles, the perfect lighting, it was a setup. I had practically invited them to commit a crime. But as a veteran lawyer, he knew one thing. It was legal. Recording someone committing a crime is perfectly valid evidence. He gave them a chance. Luo Daxing whispered to his audience, his eyes wide. He acted incompetent to give them a false sense of security. He wasn't being weak. He was setting the trap. This man is terrifying. He explained to the viewers that while bullying is hard to prosecute, aggravated burglary is a massive felony. Starting sentence? 10 years. With the frequency and the amount of money, if the judge decided this had a severe negative impact on society, the death penalty was technically on the table. Meanwhile, at the rival law firm, Wang Tao and his partners were staring at the screen in a catatonic state. They had been ready to celebrate their victory. Now, they felt like they'd been hit by a freight train. "It's a trap," one of them screamed. "Where would that family get 50,000 yuan? Who puts 2 4K cameras in a bedroom pointing at a dresser?" He lured them. "So what?" Another partner snapped, his voice trembling. "How do we prove that? We have to argue that the victims lured our clients into robbing them?" They still walked in there and took the money. The 5 partners fell into a dark, heavy silence. They realized the truth. I hadn't just won the case. I had led their clients straight to the gallows, and I had made them watch every step of the way. I sat there, watching Huang Xian crumble. He looked like he'd been struck by lightning. He was a top-tier lawyer, a high achiever, but he was drowning. He looked at me as if I were a monster. To him, using these tactics against 3 teenagers was a low blow, a lack of professional ethics. But I didn't care about ethics. I cared about results. On the defendant's bench, Tian Ingguang and his 2 friends still hadn't realized the gravity of the situation. When they heard me ask for the death penalty again, they actually laughed. They thought it was a joke. "Shut up," Huang Xian roared at them. His face was pale. He wanted to kill these 3 idiots himself. Why hadn't they told him about the money? Why hadn't they mentioned going into the house? "But Lawyer Huang," Tian Ingguang said, sounding genuinely confused. "We were just collecting protection money. How is that robbery? Besides, you never asked." Huang Xian's head was spinning. He was a brilliant student, but this was his first real trial, and his inexperience was showing. He panicked. Without waiting for the judge's permission, he jumped up, his voice trembling. Presiding judge, my clients did not commit robbery. At the start of the video, Wang Lele handed the money over willingly. This wasn't a robbery. It was a gift. Bang. Judge Wang Jinhua struck the gavel. His face was stern. Defense counsel, it is not your turn to speak. This is a warning. Then he turned to me. Plaintiff's lawyer, you mentioned 5 instances of aggravated burglary. Why are there only 4 clips in the video? I caught Huang Xian's eye and gave him a thin, cold smile. I pulled out a final USB drive. It's right here. Huang Xian stared at the drive as if it were a live grenade. He was probably wondering how many cameras I'd hidden and how many traps I'd set for these animals. The final video started playing. The courtroom went silent. The scene was the same, but this time, Lele didn't just hand over the money. He was crying. He refused to let go. Then, Tian Wang pulled out a small knife. He threatened the boy, kicked him hard in the chest, and snatched the stack of cash. Huang Xian slumped into his chair. It was over. The aggravated part of the burglary was now undeniable. Armed robbery in a private residence. That's a legal death sentence. Even a god couldn't save them now. He realized my plan then. I had used Lele to bait their greed. I knew that once they got a taste of easy money, they'd get bolder. I knew their arrogance would lead them to violence. I hadn't just proven a crime. I had engineered a scenario where they would hang themselves. But I wasn't finished. My client has been bullied to the point of despair, I said, my voice calm and steady. If they were willing to commit armed robbery, it stands to reason that the self-harm was also coerced. They didn't just rob him, they intentionally caused him grievous bodily harm. Huang Xian looked like he was about to spit blood. I was doubling down. I wasn't just going for the robbery charge. I was dragging the intentional injury charge back into the light. Outside the courtroom, the famous legal commentator Luo Daxing was explaining the logic to his stunned viewers. He explained the principle of conditional causality. If I could prove the higher-level crime of armed robbery, it made the lower-level crime of coerced self-harm much easier for a judge to believe. He looked at the screen, impressed. He wondered why a lawyer this skilled had such a bad track record before today. The viewers were ecstatic. They wanted to know if this meant the death penalty was actually happening. Luo Daxing explained that since this was a high court, they had the authority to approve a death sentence for robbery if the impact on society was severe enough. Back in the courtroom, the atmosphere was suffocating. Judge Wang Jinhua silenced the murmuring crowd with his gavel. Plaintiff's lawyer, do you have anything else to add? I stood up and nodded. Judge, this case is heinous. These 3 have committed aggravated burglary, intentional injury, and public defamation. They have outraged the public. I asked the court to consider my request for the maximum penalty. I rest my case. The judge turned to the defense. Defense lawyer, your response? Huang Xian snapped. He stood up and pointed a shaking finger at me. Judge, this is a trap. This lawyer set a trap for my clients. Is there no justice? Judge Wang Jinhua's eyes narrowed. Defense counsel, provide evidence that this was a setup. Huang Xian turned to the 3 boys, desperate. Tell him Wang Lele lured you to his house. Tian Wang wasn't smirking anymore. The reality was finally sinking in. Yes, Lele said he didn't have money on him, but there was money at home. He told us to go there. I raised my hand. I would like to ask my client one question. The judge nodded. I looked at Lele. Lele, did you say that? Lele shook his head, his voice small but clear. I told them I didn't have money. I said the money was at home, and then they forced me to take them there and robbed me. I have no further questions, I said. Liar, Huang Xian screamed, losing all professional composure. Lin Mo, you're a disgrace. You used dirty tricks. Bang. Defense counsel, the judge barked. One more outburst, and I will have you removed. Do you have any evidence that your clients were coerced into committing robbery? Huang Xian went silent. He had nothing. He knew he had lost. He slumped back into his chair, his eyes hollow and lifeless. The judge looked at him with disdain, then stood up, scanning the room. Do both parties agree that all evidence and arguments have been presented? I looked up, my expression neutral. No objections, presiding judge. Huang Xian didn't say a word. He was terrified that if he kept arguing, I'd just dig another hole for him to fall into. He slumped in his seat and muttered that he had no further objections. Judge Wang Jinhua gripped his gavel and struck it hard. He announced a 1-hour recess. After that, we would deliver our final statements, and he would deliver the verdict right then and there. As the judge stood up to leave with the other 2 members of the panel, he couldn't help but glance at me. I could see the curiosity in his eyes. In all his years on the bench, he had never seen a lawyer like me. I hadn't wasted time wrestling with the difficult details of the assault charge. Instead, I had pivoted, unearthed an entirely different crime, and delivered a killing blow. It was a masterclass in legal maneuvering. Even though he had to remain objective as a judge, I could tell that, as a human being, he was satisfied. Finally, someone had brought real evidence to punish these bullies. A swarm of bailiffs entered the room, surrounding Tian Ingguang and his 2 friends. The boys were finally starting to shake. "Lawyer Huang, are we really going to get the death penalty?" Tian Ingguang whispered, his voice trembling. Huang Xin frowned. "No, at least not today. The death penalty requires a long review process by the Supreme Court. They can't decide that in an hour. Don't worry, I'll find a way to overturn this." Meanwhile, in the back chambers, the atmosphere was tense. The 2 assistant judges were panicking. They knew the case had spiraled from a civil dispute into a major criminal matter. "Shouldn't we hand them over to the police for a new trial?" one of them asked. Wang Jinhua didn't hesitate. "Call the court president. We need a death penalty ruling now." The assistants were stunned. Before they could move, a man hurried into the office. It was Chun Guangtai, the court president. "Old Wang, you can't be this rash," Chun said, his voice urgent. "We have to be careful." Wang Jinhua looked him in the eye. "I know you've been watching the live stream. The evidence is airtight. The legal interpretation is sound. Tian Ingguang is the leader." He pulled the knife. He entered the home. He took the money. "If you don't agree with the sentence, you tell me how to judge this." Chun Guangtai sighed. He knew the crimes were proven, but he was afraid. This was a national sensation. If they made a mistake, the responsibility would be crushing. "But the procedure," Chun started. "The procedure?" Wang Jinhua snapped. "Do you know how many people are watching this? Do you know how many bullies are waiting to see if they can get away with it? This is a live stream. If we don't deliver justice now, the public will lose all faith in the law." Lin Mo practically shoved the evidence down my throat. "If I don't rule on it, the people will tear this courthouse down." Wang Jinhua stepped closer and lowered his voice. "Don't you see? Lin Mo gave them so many chances. He used the same filings, the same evidence, over and over. He was warning them. He even brought up that ridiculous robbery charge about the cigarettes as a final test. He wanted to see if they had any remorse. They didn't. They pushed him until he had no choice but to destroy them. He's been more than merciful." Chun Guangtai went silent. Finally, he nodded. "Fine. I won't stop you." "Good," Wang Jinhua said. "I'll contact the Supreme Court for immediate review. I'm the presiding judge. I'll take full responsibility. I've heard enough about protecting minors over the years. Today, we protect the victims." He picked up the phone. To his surprise, the higher-ups approved it almost instantly. The message was clear: make it beautiful. The law is meant to protect children, and the public demand for justice was overwhelming. Back in the courtroom, the air was thick. The hour passed in a blur of silence. No one left. Everyone was waiting for the end. Lele looked up at me, his voice tiny. "Lawyer Lin, will they really?" I gave him a small, confident smile. "Don't worry. I've got this." On the screens of millions of viewers, legal experts were already calling it. I had won. It didn't matter what the specific sentence was yet. I had already dismantled the bullies and their defense. The doors swung open. Wang Jinhua walked back in, his face like stone. He took his seat and raised the gavel. Bang. "Court is back in session," he announced. "Final statements from both sides. Prosecution, are you ready?" I adjusted my suit and stood up. My voice was calm, but it filled the room. "I am ready, presiding judge. But first, I have one question for the defendant, Tian Ingguang." The judge nodded. "Proceed." Every eye in the room, and every camera lens, fixed on me. "Tian Ingguang," I said, staring him down. "When you were hurting Wang Lele, did it give you a sense of power? Did you enjoy it?" Tian Ingguang froze, the color draining from his face. Tian Guang didn't flinch. Instead, a twisted, evil smile spread across his face. Yeah, he sneered. Of course I did. Stepping on a top student like him? It felt amazing. He looked like he wanted to brag, to shout his triumph to the world since he was going to jail anyway. His lawyer, Huang Xian, turned pale. He looked like he wanted to curse his own client's ancestors. He shot his hand up immediately. Presiding judge, my client refuses to answer. I request to strike that statement. After he spoke, he looked at me with lingering fear. I just let out a cold laugh. I didn't need a verbal answer. I just needed the cameras to catch that flicker of pure malice on Tian Guang's face. Up on the bench, Wang Jinhua narrowed his eyes. He saw right through me. He knew I was using the public's outrage to pressure the court, pushing him to give a sentence he might have hesitated on. In all his years, he'd never seen a lawyer this bold. But he didn't look angry. He looked like he respected the hustle. Request granted, Wang Jinhua announced. Prosecution, please begin your final statement. I stood tall and adjusted my thoughts. Presiding judge, the campus is not a land outside the law. The Protection of Minors Act is not a shield for bullies. The law is sacred. It is meant to protect all of us. This court relies on evidence, and we have provided facts. The defense has done nothing but deny and quibble without a single shred of proof. These three defendants remain arrogant. Their actions have caused extreme mental trauma to my client and cast a dark shadow over every student in school. Their behavior is vile, their attitude is stubborn, and they must be punished to serve as a warning to others. I rest my case. It was the shortest closing statement I had ever given. Wang Jinhua's face remained like stone. He turned to the other side. Defense, your final statement. Huang Xian looked completely broken. He looked like he didn't even want to be there anymore. But he forced himself to speak. Presiding judge, my clients are under 18. According to Article 49 of the criminal law, the death penalty cannot be applied to minors. We ask for a lenient sentence. That is all. He slumped back into his chair, defeated. Wang Jinhua nodded. He looked over the notes from the collegial bench and the final arguments. The statements are complete. The court is ready to pass judgment. All rise. Everyone stood up. The media, the spectators, everyone. Lele stood next to me, his small body trembling with tension. He had waited so long for this. He needed justice, not just for himself, but for every kid who had been pushed into a corner. Across from us, the three bullies still tried to look tough, but I could see the cracks. Their eyes were darting around, full of guilt and fear. Wang Jinhua picked up the documents and began to read. In the case of Wang Lele against Tian Guang, Su Ziyi, and Chou Tianlei for intentional injury and robbery, this court has reached a verdict. He paused, his voice ringing through the silent room. Based on the evidence, the defendants coerced the plaintiff into self-harm, causing multiple fractures and serious injuries. This constitutes intentional injury. Furthermore, the defendants entered Wang Lele's home 5 times to commit robbery. In one instance, Tian Guang used a knife to steal 50,000 yuan. This constitutes robbery with a weapon in a private residence. He looked directly at the defendants. The nature of these crimes is extremely vile. The social impact is devastating. For the combined crimes, Tian Guang is sentenced to death with a 2-year reprieve. The room gasped. Su Ziyi and Chou Tianlei, being over 16 but under 18, are sentenced to 25 years in prison. The court will now notify the prosecution to begin the formal public prosecution process. Boom. The verdict hit the room like a lightning bolt. Everyone expected a heavy sentence, but no one expected this. Lawyers watching the stream, including the famous Luo Daxing, stared at their screens in absolute shock. The words death penalty echoed in the silence. It was unheard of for a case like this. In the middle of that stunned silence, a small sound broke through. It started as a whimper, then grew into a loud, sobbing wail. It was Lele. He was crying, his face covered in tears, but he was smiling. It wasn't a cry of pain. It was the sound of a weight being lifted after years of suffocation. Luo Daxing, watching from his office, choked up. The bullying from classmates, the distrust from teachers, the helplessness of the police. We can't imagine what this boy went through. He cried for help, and all he got was more abuse. But in this moment, He was proven right. He didn't give up on himself. He paused, his voice trembling. But is justice that comes this late still justice? Everyone watching felt a pang of sorrow. They looked at the boy sobbing in the center of the court. Then, Lele turned and threw his arms around me, hugging me with everything he had. I didn't say a word. I just smiled and patted his shoulder. He cried even harder then, finally finding a safe harbor where he could let go of all his defenses. Luo Daxing smiled through his own tears as he watched us. At least this story had a happy ending. At least, for once, the good guys won. This was the magic of youth. It was a test of willpower, a sharpening stone on the path to growing up. Lele had endured it. He had fought, and he had never given up. Finally, he found his justice. I was the one who delivered it. I had built the thickest shield possible and placed it right in front of Lele to protect him. At the same time, I had forged the sharpest spear and driven it straight into the hearts of those monsters. Luo Daxing, watching the stream, paused with a meaningful expression. He told his audience that maybe I hadn't just built a shield for one boy. Maybe I had built a shield for every bullied child in the country. The spear I crafted was one that any victim could pick up to strike back at evil. The viewers were stunned. It was like a moment of sudden enlightenment. They looked at me, a man standing tall in a lawyer's suit, and saw exactly what a counterattack looked like. The other lawyers watching were even more shaken. They saw the deeper implications. My methods had completely overturned their traditional way of handling cases. If no one will stand up for you, you stand up for yourself. Break out of the trap of trying to prove your innocence. Take control. Flip the script. Luo Daxing praised the technical brilliance of the trial. He promised to make a dedicated video to break down the highlights and discuss the correct way to handle school bullying. Suddenly, a sharp metallic click echoed through the room. Following the judge's verdict, the bailiff stepped forward and snapped handcuffs onto Tian Guang and his friends. No, this is impossible, Tian Guang screamed. The cold steel against his wrists finally snapped him out of his shock. He thrashed like a cornered dog, howling at Judge Wang Jinhua. He thought that by throwing a tantrum, he'd get a reaction, just like he did with his teachers at school. But this was a court of law. There were no teachers here to coddle him. Screw you. Lele is just a poor loser. He deserved to be humiliated. How can you give me the death penalty? Tian Wang's eyes were bloodshot as he roared. I'm a minor. Judge Wang didn't even look at him. I let out a cold laugh. Tian Wang, you turned 18 the day before you broke into that house to rob it, I said, my voice cutting through his screaming. And that night, you used the stolen money to throw yourself a massive birthday party. Did you already forget? The audience gasped. A chill ran through the courtroom. Tian Guang froze. He blinked, the realization slowly sinking in. He really was 18. His face twisted in rage as he pointed his shaking, cuffed hands at me. It was you. You set this all up. I'll kill you. He tried to lung at me, but he wasn't the big shot on campus anymore. The bailiffs slammed him face first into the floor and held him there. I told you, I said, looking down at him with absolute calm. Show me the evidence. We live in a society ruled by law. Tian Wang's face turned purple as he struggled against the floor. He was used to being the one doing the pinning. Now, he was the one being crushed. Meanwhile, their lawyer, Huang Xian, looked like he was about to explode. If the robbery had happened just one day earlier, his client wouldn't be facing execution. He knew I had orchestrated the timing, but there was no proof. Who could he tell? What could he prove? He looked like he wanted to call the police on me. I looked at him casually. Don't be in such a hurry, counsel. The chief judge hasn't finished reading yet. Not finished, someone whispered. He was already sentenced to death. What else was there? Judge Wang Jinhua squinted at the documents. Quiet in the court. Regarding the plaintiff's request for 1 million yuan in compensation, considering the physical and mental trauma suffered by Wang Lele, the request is granted. He ordered Tian Guang, Su Ziyi, and Chou Tianlei to pay 1 million yuan within 10 days. Huang Xian looked like he wanted to curse out loud. The rest of the gallery sat in awkward silence. Before the trial, everyone thought I was crazy for asking for 1 million. Now, it was a court order. Lele's tears started falling again, but this time he was silent. My mom. She finally has money for her medical bills, he choked out. You earned this, kid, I told him. After 3 years of hell, most kids would have lost their minds. This was the bare minimum he deserved. Thank you, Lawyer Lin, Lele said solemnly. I smiled. I told you I'd win. Now go back, study hard, and get ready for the college entrance exams. I will, he promised, a real smile finally breaking through. Judge Wong struck his gavel. This is the initial verdict. The defendants have the right to appeal. Court is adjourned. The sound of the gavel was like a funeral bell. The trial was over. In the defendant's dock, Su Ziyi and Cho Tianlei collapsed. Tianning Wang was still pinned to the floor, broken. Death. 25 years. It was real. They turned their fury on Huang Xian. You said this was a sure win. You said it was a minor issue. Now one of us is dead, and 2 are gone for 25 years. What kind of lawyer are you? They were losing their minds. Huang Xian realized he was in deep trouble. This was supposed to be a simple bullying case, maybe a few years for assault at most. Now it was a capital crime. His reputation was over before it even started. I don't accept this. We were framed. Huang Xian shouted. He couldn't let his career end like this. Take it easy, Lawyer Huang, I said from a few feet away. Don't blame yourself. At least you aren't the one going to prison, yet. Huang Xian glared at me. What? You think you can send me to jail too? I let a small, predatory smile play on my lips. Who knows? Maybe you were the one who encouraged them to commit that robbery. After all, they were robbing the place right around the time you took the case. Maybe you suggested it just so they could afford your legal fees. Every lawyer watching the live stream felt their skin crawl. I was going for the throat. I was actually trying to put the opposing counsel behind bars. You're full of it. Huang Xian screamed, his composure totally gone. Only a scumbag lawyer like you would do something like that. I raised my eyebrows and immediately turned back to the bench. Chief Judge, the opposing counsel is slandering me. He called me a scumbag lawyer and is attacking my character. I believe his behavior constitutes criminal defamation. The courtroom went dead silent. I wasn't just winning the case. I was cleaning the house. Huang Xian and everyone in the courtroom stared at me with their mouths hanging open. The trial was over. The verdict was in. Yet here I was, throwing one last punch before the judge could even stand up. Chief Judge Wang Jinhua pressed his lips together and looked at me with a weary sigh. His expression said it all. Just let it go, Lin Mo. He's already broken, but I wasn't finished. Huang Xian finally snapped. He clutched his chest, his face turning a sickly shade of purple as he pointed a trembling finger at me. You're not human. How can a lawyer be this unreasonable? I didn't blink. I turned my head toward the bench. Chief Judge, he just insulted me again. He said I'm not human. Damn you, Huang Xian screamed. The rage hit him like a physical blow. He lunged at me, arms flailing, ready to tear me apart right there in the courtroom. He didn't get far. The bailiffs were on him in a second, pinning him face first against the floor. I looked down at the struggling lawyer and then back at the judge. My voice remained calm, almost bored. You see, Chief Judge? Lawyer Huang is far too unstable. He's clearly in league with those 3 criminals. My suspicion that he encouraged the robbery is looking more valid by the second. All right. Enough, Lawyer Lin, Wang Jinhua interrupted. He knew if he didn't stop me, I'd probably give Huang Xian a heart attack. The trial is over. If you have further complaints, file a separate lawsuit. The judge looked at the cameras. This was a live broadcast, after all. He couldn't let me turn his courtroom into a circus, even if my performance had been flawless. But as he looked at the slight smirk on my face, he felt a chill. He had a feeling that from today on, the legal world in Shanghai was never going to be the same. Online, the viewers were losing their minds. Nobody had ever seen a lawyer drive the opposing counsel into a literal breakdown. Miles away, Huang Xian's father, Huang Jinsheng, jumped out of his seat. He pointed a shaking hand at the screen, his face pale. This Lin Mo, he's a madman. His law firm partners stood behind him, looking equally terrified. Old Huang, this guy is bad news. He's cursed. We shouldn't have messed with him. He doesn't play by the rules, another partner whispered. He didn't even try to prove intentional injury. He just pivoted to a much heavier crime. To frame it as a home invasion robbery? That's not just legal skill. That's a genius-level trap. No one wins against that. Huang Jinsheng was fuming. His son's career was in tatters. I won't let this go. I'll go to the bar association. I'll have him disbarred for unethical conduct. I'll prove he set this whole thing up. The partners exchanged awkward glances. Old Huang. One of them started. Lin Mo isn't actually a member of the bar association. What? He never joined. We can't kick him out of a club he doesn't belong to. Huang Jianxing froze. He realized then that I was a ghost in the system. I had no reputation to protect, no circle to please, and no leash to hold me back. Meanwhile, in Luo Daxing's popular legal stream, the comments were flying. Teacher Luo, isn't Lin Mo's behavior a bit much? Won't the legal community blackball him for being this aggressive? Luo Daxing narrowed his eyes at the camera. That's a good question. Usually, law is a small circle. You fight in court, but you eat dinner together afterward. But look at Lin Mo's situation before this case. He was already a laughingstock. He was already an outcast. If he were afraid of being disliked, he never would have taken this case. The chat went silent for a moment. Then someone typed, "So he's invincible? He can destroy anyone without caring about social consequences." Luo Daxing smiled. Actually, that's how a lawyer should be. We are servants of the law. As long as he stays within the framework of the legal code, what he does is valid. If you can use the law as a weapon better than anyone else, that's just talent. As the news of my victory exploded across social media, a notification chimed in my head. Ding. You have perfectly completed a commission. The system began calculating the emotional response of my clients. For the boy, Lele, the scores were perfect. Joy 100. Gratitude 100. Hope 100. Admiration 100. Reward 40,000 yuan and 4,000 experience points. Seeing that hope score hit 100 made me feel a genuine sense of relief. A kid needs hope to survive what he went through. Then my phone buzzed with a bank notification. The money was a nice bonus, but the real prize was my reputation. I wasn't this scumbag lawyer anymore. I was a force of nature. Suddenly, I heard a loud thud. I looked down. Wang Dahai had rushed from the gallery and thrown himself onto the floor, his knees hitting the tiles hard. He was kneeling at my feet. Lawyer Lin, thank you so much. He was sobbing, his forehead heading straight for the floor to kowtow. Brother Wang, get up. You don't need to do this, I said, grabbing his shoulders to pull him up. But he was strong, driven by pure, raw emotion. Let me do this. I don't know how else to thank you. Ding. Calculating Wang Dahai's emotions. Gratitude. 150. Exceeded limit. 100. Excitement. 100. Joy. 100. Reward. 40,000 yuan and 4,000 experience points. Total experience gained. 8,000. Points needed for next system upgrade. 12,000. I realized why his score was different. While the boy felt admiration, the father felt something else. Awe. He wasn't just impressed by my skill. He was terrified of what I was capable of. And honestly, I couldn't blame him. Winning the awe of a middle-aged man who had been crushed by society was no small feat. I looked at Wang Dahai and felt a wave of satisfaction. I could feel his emotions radiating off him. Brother Wang, I said firmly, if you really kowtow to me, I won't be able to face you again. He was determined to hit the floor, but my words made him freeze. Then I won't, he stammered, finally letting me pull him to his feet. He wiped his eyes, looking lost. Lawyer Lin, when that 1 million yuan compensation comes through, let's split it. Half and half. He didn't know how else to repay me. I shook my head immediately. That money belongs to your family. Keep it for Lele's future. Use it for his mother's medical bills. At the mention of his wife, Dahai's eyes welled up again. He never imagined their medical debt would be cleared like this. The tears started flowing freely. Lawyer Lin, I don't know how to thank you. I smiled. You already have. Both father and son scratched their heads, looking confused. When Lele asked, your trust, I told them. You believed in me. Because of you, I've reclaimed my reputation. Don't worry about me. From now on, my career is going straight to the top. Lele looked like he only half understood, but Dahai nodded with deep gratitude. Lawyer Lin, if you ever need anything, just call me. Let's go, I said. Lele needs to get back to school. We walked out of the Jianghai High Court together. The moment we stepped outside, a wall of flashbulbs blinded me. The courtyard was packed. Reporters and camera crews were everywhere, waiting for my appearance. Many of them had awkward smiles on their faces. They hadn't forgotten how they mocked me before the trial started. I didn't care. Holding on to old grudges is a waste of time. Using the current resources to build my brand, that's the real game. I knew that even after winning this case, I was still just a bottom-tier lawyer in the eyes of the elite. I needed to climb. "Ask away," I said, leaning in as they swarmed me. Their eyes were no longer full of disdain, but respect. I was the genius who had just dismantled a group of bullies. "Lawyer Lin, how did you pull off such a stunning counterattack?" a reporter shouted. I grinned wide for the camera. "It's mostly because our firm, Shuanha Law Firm, is incredible. If you need a lawsuit handled, come to Shuanha. We are a professional team." The reporter blinked. That wasn't exactly a legal analysis. Another one pushed forward. "Lawyer Lin, was the home invasion by Tian Ingguang and the others a trap you set? Was your behavior legal?" It was a sharp, aggressive question. I kept my professional smile. "Rest assured, everything we do at Shuanha Law Firm is within the bounds of the law. We provide maximum professional help to our clients." The reporter looked baffled. My answers had nothing to do with their questions. Every time they asked something technical or controversial, I just pivoted back to a blatant advertisement for my firm. The reporters finally realized what was happening. This guy was using his victory lap to run commercials. The live stream comments were exploding. People were losing it. "Lin Mo is a freaking genius. Even at his peak moment, he's just grinding for ads," one user wrote. Another commented, "Most lawyers would be bragging about their brilliance, but he's just grinning at the camera like a salesman. I love this guy." Back at their offices, other lawyers were laughing too. They knew what I was doing. A lawyer's biggest fear isn't losing, it's being invisible. Fame brings cases, and cases bring money. My advertisement was a masterstroke of marketing. Wang Tao, the prosecutor, just stared at the screen, speechless. Luo Daxian gave a helpless, amused smile. Suddenly, the crowd shifted. A heavy-set man with a thick gold chain burst through the reporters. He hit the ground with a sickening thud right in front of me. "Lawyer Lin, please, have mercy on my son," he wailed. "I'll give you whatever you want. Just don't let him get the death penalty." It was Tian Zhongren. He had been so sure he would win that the death sentence had completely broken him. He started slamming his forehead against the marble floor, leaving smears of blood. The crowd backed away in shock. I looked down at him coldly. I remembered his arrogance. I remembered how he looked down on the Wang family like they were insects. Men like him don't feel remorse. They only feel pain when they lose. "I gave you a chance," I said, my voice cutting through his sobbing. He didn't listen. He kept banging his head. "You can die right here," I said, "and the law still won't let your son go." I turned to the Wang family, who looked conflicted. "Let's go. It's time to start your new life." I knew Dahai was a soft-hearted man. He couldn't handle a snake like Tian Zhongren. If he stayed, he might be tricked into signing a forgiveness agreement that would ruin everything. "Lawyer Lin," a young female reporter called out. "Don't you have any compassion? Why won't you help him up?" I stopped and turned, a cold sneer on my face. Compassion? Where was the compassion when Lele was being tormented? Where was the compassion when Tian Ingguang and those animals were destroying lives? I stepped toward the cameras, my voice rising. "Do you have any idea how many kids live in the shadow of bullying? That shadow follows them forever. Now he wants to kowtow? Fine. Let him kowtow for every person his son ever hurt." I looked down at the man on the floor. "You thought you were above the law. You thought the law would protect you while you preyed on the weak. I'm sorry to tell you, I have 100 ways to deal with people like you." The courtyard went silent. I had never shown this kind of anger, not even in court. Tian Zhongren collapsed, rolling on the ground in a pathetic heap. But my voice remained steady and heavy. "Regret? Anger? Reflection? No. Only the death penalty will make predators like you feel fear. That is the law." The reporters were stunned. The young man who had been joking and advertising seconds ago now looked dangerous. The live stream went wild as my words rippled across the internet. Lawyers, judges, and critics began a fierce debate over my methods. Some called me a hero, others called me a monster. I didn't care about their labels. I looked at the reporters one last time. "I've said all I'm going to say. No more interviews." I turned and walked away without looking back. Wang Dahai and Lele, who had been wearing expressions of uncertainty just moments ago, straightened their backs. Their eyes cleared, and they followed close behind me. I kept my spine straight and my head held high as I descended the courthouse steps. For the first time, I actually felt like a lawyer who had just won a major victory. I felt young, sharp, and full of purpose. A crowd had gathered at the bottom of the stairs. Among them were the Wu family, Jiao Wendong, and a group of high school students in uniform. They were beaming at us. I realized these were Lele's classmates. "Lele, go on," I said with a smile. "Go tell your friends the good news." Lele's face lit up. "Yes, sir." He ran toward them, a genuine, youthful smile breaking across his face for the first time since I met him. The teenagers surrounded him, laughing and sharing the joy. It was a sight of pure relief. "Dahai," I said, turning to the father. "You should get home. Your wife is waiting for the news." Dahai blinked, then a massive grin spread across his face. "You're right. I need to tell her." Just then, a police car screeched to a halt on the road in front of the court. 5 officers piled out, their faces etched with stress. They rushed toward the steps, clearly heading for the courtroom. I recognized the man in the lead, Officer Chun. He was the same officer who had dismissed Dahai and Lele weeks ago, claiming they were just making trouble. Now, his face was pale, looking like a man who had just been handed a career-ending reprimand. When he spotted me, his expression shifted from worry to fury. He lunged forward and grabbed me by the collar. His face was beet red. "Linimo, why? If you had this evidence, why didn't you report it to us?" I didn't flinch. I just smiled. It was clear the public outcry from the live stream had already hit the police station hard. Everyone stopped to watch, including Lele and his classmates. "I did report it, Officer Chun," I said calmly, even as he tugged at my shirt. "But you didn't seem to trust us. I figured it was safer to give such important evidence directly to the court." "You're full of crap," Chun roared. "If I had seen proof like that, do you think I would have ignored it?" I held up my hands in a mock gesture of innocence. "Well, the court reached a verdict anyway. I didn't want to trouble you with the paperwork." Chun looked like he was about to explode. I knew why. His superiors were likely preparing to skin him alive for missing this. "Chun Young, let go." An older officer stepped in and pulled him back. "Chief, it's him," Chun yelled. "He could have given us the files." "Shut up," the chief snapped. He turned to me, his voice dropping to a softer, more interrogative tone. "Lawyer Lin, don't you think your methods were a bit aggressive?" "Aggressive?" I let out a mocking laugh. "What's so funny?" the chief asked, his face hardening. "You should have followed protocol. You should have come to us." I stopped laughing and looked him dead in the eye. "Chief, I'm not a suspect. Don't use that tone with me. My client and I aren't interested in any explanations or deals. If you have a problem, take it up with the high court. Dahai, let's go." The 5 officers stood frozen on the steps. Chun Yong looked like he was suffering a stroke. They had clearly never dealt with a lawyer this uncooperative. I paused and looked back over my shoulder. "Does this feeling seem familiar to you, Officer Chen?" He stared at me, confused. "This is exactly how you treated us when we came to you for help," I said coldly. I walked away, leaving them standing in the wind. I wanted them to feel exactly what Dahai had felt, powerless and ignored. Dahai followed me, his chest heaving with a mix of bitterness and triumph. He remembered the days of begging for help while they turned their backs. Now, he just snorted at them and kept walking. My phone was buzzing nonstop. The livestream comments were exploding. People were losing their minds. "Lawyer Lin is a beast," one comment read. "Why should he help the police now? They didn't help him when it mattered." I hailed a taxi. As it pulled up, Dahai grabbed my hand. "Lawyer Lin, if you ever need anything at all, just call me. Take care of Lele and your wife, Dahai," I said. "One needs to study for exams, the other needs to get healthy. You've got a big job ahead of you." He scratched his head and nodded. I looked at Lele one last time. "Go have fun with your friends. You're their hero today." I got into the car and watched them fade into the distance through the rear window. They were still smiling. I leaned back against the seat and finally exhaled. I had won. My reputation was skyrocketing, and the system had just dropped 80,000 yuan into my account as a reward. I scrolled through social media. I was trending everywhere: TikTok, Weibo, legal forums. The big names were weighing in. Jiang Daoshan, a famous lawyer with millions of followers, posted, "I support Lin Mo. You don't play fair with monsters." Professor Wang Daohan from the University of Political Science called me a unpredictable genius. Other creators were comparing me to legendary legal rebels, saying I had provided a blueprint for every bullying victim in the country. Of course, the critics were there too. They called me morally bankrupt and accused me of exploiting legal loopholes. They said I was a danger to the profession. I locked my phone and looked out the window. They could call me whatever they wanted. The truth was simple. I was Lin Mo, and I was just getting started. I scrolled through the comments on my phone, watching the debate unfold. Some people thought my move was brilliant, but others were calling it morally bankrupt. They argued that even though school bullying was a nightmare, aiming for the death penalty was too much. They said I should have stuck to proving intentional injury instead of orchestrating a lethal trap. I just smiled. I didn't feel the need to explain myself. I was famous now, and with fame came the haters. They could sit in their air-conditioned offices and talk about ethics all they wanted. They hadn't seen Lele's hollow eyes. They hadn't felt Dahai's desperation. I had given those bullies every chance to show a shred of remorse, and they had spat on it. This ending was their own making. Then, I saw a video with massive engagement, over 100,000 likes. The title read, "Gold Medal Lawyer Ning Hong." I knew that face. Ning Hong wasn't just any lawyer. She was my predecessor's ex-girlfriend. Back when the original owner of this body lost his first big case, she didn't hesitate. She cut him off instantly, showing zero mercy or sentiment. She had only gotten into Jinhan Law Firm, one of the top red circle firms in the country, because I had begged my mentor to pull strings for her. I had sacrificed my own career prospects to give her a path to the top, and the moment she arrived, she kicked me to the curb. Now, she was a rising star in the legal media world. Her page was filled with videos of her explaining the law while wearing professional suits and black stockings. It was a calculated look that bordered on unprofessional, but her million followers didn't seem to mind. Her latest video, posted just 10 minutes after my trial ended, was a direct attack on me. I hit play. She sat there with her permed hair and a low-cut blouse, her long legs crossed elegantly. "Family," she said, her voice smooth and performative. "The Lele bullying case is trending, and I see a lot of you supporting this lawyer, Lin Mo. But I'm here to pour some cold water on that fire." She paused for dramatic effect. "Let's look at the facts. Setting aside the evidence he produced, I don't believe Lin Mo has any actual legal talent. Did you notice? Throughout the entire trial, he never once debated legal theory. He didn't interpret a single statute. He didn't show any professional legal literacy. He just produced a piece of absolute evidence to kill the case. Any amateur could do that." She leaned closer to the camera. "As for that robbery evidence, it's effective, sure. But isn't it possible he set a trap? Lin Mo knows his legal knowledge is shallow, so he plays dirty. He lost his first 2 cases because he tried to be clever and failed. This time, he just got lucky. He is a danger to our legal system, a rogue who ignores the law to set traps for teenagers. He's setting a horrible example for the youth of this country. I urge you not to imitate him. His behavior could actually be classified as false accusation and framing, which is a criminal offense. He is a disgrace to our profession." The comments were filled with her simps, praising her professionalism. They called me a third-rate clown and a wild path lawyer. Any comment supporting me was deleted immediately, while the negative ones were pushed to the top. Meanwhile, in a luxury office at the Jinhan Law Firm, the sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows. Jinhan was a powerhouse with a 91% win rate. It was a place where 7 lawyers made over $10 million a year, and dozens more made millions. If a rival lawyer heard Jinhan was on the other side of a case, they usually gave up before the first hearing. Ning Hong sat in her expensive leather chair, watching her follower count climb. She took a sip of her premium craft coffee and sighed. "I should have started bashing Lin Mo sooner. Look at this traffic." "Ning Hong, don't you think your wording was a bit harsh?" a colleague asked from across the room. "Harsh?" She turned to him with a smirk. "Lawyer Wong, you're a gold medalist too. Do you honestly think Lin Mo has any real skill?" The room went quiet for a second before the other lawyers burst into laughter. Wong shook his head. "To be honest, I don't see any. He's a rogue. A wild path student who doesn't know the first thing about real litigation. Exactly, another lawyer chimed in. A lawyer's job is to interpret the law through deep debate. The fact that the internet is calling him a top-tier lawyer when he hasn't shown a lick of legal literacy is just ridiculous. In their eyes, I wasn't a threat. I was just a lucky amateur who had traded his integrity for a viral moment. They had no idea that I was just getting warmed up. Ning Hong smiled with satisfaction, basking in the approval of her elite colleagues. I didn't know about their smug laughter back at the Jinhan law firm. I was already back in my cramped office, staring at a screen. I watched Ning Hong's video and let out a cold laugh. She claimed I had no real skill. That was hilarious. In my past life, I was so good at my job that rival lawyers tried to run me off the road just to stop me. Now, this woman was stepping on my reputation just to farm views, completely ignoring our past connection. She was pure trash. I pulled up the official court website to dig into her record. Ning Hong had handled 3 major cases since her debut. All 3 were divorces. She always represented the wives. I scanned the trial transcripts and the pattern jumped out immediately. All 3 cases ended in divorce, and every single one involved a wealthy husband worth tens of millions. The marriages never lasted more than 2 years. In the settlements, the women walked away with massive fortunes. In one case, the husband was cleaned out entirely, leaving the wife with tens of millions. These women were all the same, gold diggers who loved luxury. After the divorce, they achieved total financial freedom. I knew exactly what Ning Hong was. She wasn't just a lawyer. She was a specialist for sisters looking to strip their husbands of every cent. She was a mercenary. I'd dealt with her type before, but never someone this arrogant. I checked the legal landscape of this world and realized the problem. Marriage fraud wasn't a hot topic yet. The judicial system hadn't caught on to this specific scam. Ning Hong was a pioneer in this predatory niche, taking huge commissions to fund her sports cars and downtown penthouses. I found comments from the husbands she had ruined. They were all crying for justice, cursing both their ex-wives and Ning Hong. But their voices were too quiet. They were a vulnerable group with no platform. Recently, she had taken on a case involving a famous male influencer. He was publicly screaming about marriage fraud, which was the only reason I could even find these details. Dealing with a lawyer like Ning Hong would be easy. I didn't just have the means to send her clients to jail. I could send her right along with them. That was the difference in our professional levels. I decided to start a live stream. Her insulting me was a small issue, but her stealing my traffic was a big one. If these haters wanted to use my name for clout, I'd just take the audience back. I needed to eat, after all. A lawyer can't maintain world peace on an empty stomach. The moment I went live, the viewer count exploded. 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. It hit 60,000 and stayed there. I hadn't spent a dime on promotion. The screen was flooded with one sentence. Everyone, apologize to Brother Lin. I'm sorry, Lawyer Lin. You are the true God. We were blind. I take back everything I said. The chat turned into a massive apology session. GIFs started flying across the screen, the effects blurring the video. I smiled and raised my hands to calm them down. That's the thing about netizens. If you're weak, they'll tear you apart. But if you show real strength, they'll put you on a pedestal. I opened the link for callers. Thousands joined the queue instantly. I picked the top donor, a guy who had been spamming expensive gifts. Hello, Lawyer Lin. I'm a huge fan. His voice crackled with excitement. Go ahead with your question, I said. That other big lawyer, Ning Hong, says you have no talent. How should we hit back? I narrowed my eyes. My fans were my source of power and income. I could ignore the clowns, but my fans couldn't. If I didn't respond, they'd feel defeated. They'd think I really was a fraud, and they'd leave. I have an answer for that, I told the room. People say I didn't show any legal literacy in this case. But have you considered that I was operating on a much higher level? The 50,000 viewers went silent, confused. Think about it, I explained. I didn't just win a case for Lele. I created a blueprint for every bullied student in the country. Instead of getting bogged down in complex legal definitions of intentional injury, I showed them a path to protect themselves. This isn't just a case. It's a methodology that anyone can use. The chat paused, then erupted. They finally got it. I wasn't just fighting a battle. I was teaching them the art of war. Lawyer Lin, the caller asked, Do you have any other tips for stopping bullies? I leaned back. Time to feed them the good stuff. There are 3 ways. First, call the police immediately. Don't say bullying. Say you were maliciously assaulted. The police have to file a case. If they're over 14, it's criminal. If they're under, it's a public security matter. Make the parents sign a safety guarantee right there in front of the cops. I continued. Second, go to the Education Bureau. Find the office in charge of sweeping black and evil, organized crime. Bullying falls under their jurisdiction now. Once you involve them, the school will be the one chasing you to fix it. Even if you have no background, you'll have the upper hand. Then, I let out a wicked grin. The third way, use their greed. For example, maybe you just happen to have 2,000 yuan in your pocket for living expenses. And maybe, just maybe, the bullies happened to see it and take it. The chat exploded with "I get it" and "understood." The donor on the line started laughing darkly. "Lawyer Lin," he whispered, "you really are a genius." The donor on the line praised me, his voice full of awe. He admitted he'd never seen a lawyer like me before. But then, he hesitated. He asked what would happen if the bullies caught on to the tactic and refused to take the bait. I just smiled. I told him I had already opened the door to a new way of thinking. Once you move from 0 to 1, steps 2 and 3 become easy. Besides, in this age of big data, most aggressors wouldn't see my video until it was already too late for them. The donor laughed, finally understanding the trap. He realized this wasn't just about robbery. This logic could be used to frame these bullies for all sorts of crimes. The comments section went absolutely wild. People were calling my methods dirty and sinister, questioning if a proper lawyer should even think like this. But the nickname they gave me stuck, the sleazy lawyer. They loved it. Some even joked about using it on their bosses, though I had to tell them to stay focused. My words were clipped, edited, and blasted across the internet. Thousands of bullied kids and desperate parents started watching. At first, they were terrified to try it. That changed when Luo Daxian, a famous legal scholar, posted his analysis. Luo Daxian praised my handling of Wang Leilei's case. Then, he addressed the elephant in the room, my third method. He looked right into the camera and told the world that using someone's greed against them wasn't a crime. He argued that there wasn't a single statute in the books to punish such behavior. He used a classic, blunt analogy. If a beautiful woman walks down the street in a revealing outfit and a man assaults her, can he claim she lured him into it? Of course not. The crime happened. The intent was his. He explained that framing someone requires fabricating facts. But if a bully actually steals 2,000 yuan from your pocket, that is a real, undeniable fact. The trap doesn't change the crime. With his backing, the heat around the case exploded. Across the country, victims of bullying stopped crying and started looking for ways to strike back. A silent counteroffensive was brewing in the shadows. As for me, I kept taking calls to earn system fees. Being famous had its downsides, though. Suddenly, everyone wanted to hire me. People called about poisoned dogs, internet insults, or wanting a new car as compensation for a single slap. None of these cases interested me. They were petty, the fees were low, and they wouldn't help my reputation. I looked at the pile of digital requests and realized I needed an assistant. Not just a legal clerk, but someone who could fight. A bodyguard assistant hybrid. Money wasn't an issue, but safety was. I still remembered how Huang Xian tried to kill me in court. If I died now, I'd have no one to blame but myself. I drafted a recruitment notice and posted it on my homepage. Almost immediately, a user named World's Best Blind Monk started spamming my stream with 10 super rockets. He took the top donor spot and caught my attention. I clicked his profile. He was a famous gaming influencer with millions of followers, known for his flashy plays in League of Legends. "Lawyer Lin, connect with me," he shouted in the comments. "Please, save me." I squinted at the screen. My fame was reaching new heights if million-follower influencers were begging for my help. I accepted the connection. Before I could even say hello, he started yelling, "Lawyer Lin, save me. My wife is a fraud. She's divorcing me and trying to take everything. All the money I bled and sweated for during my streams." I raised an eyebrow. This sounded familiar. I asked him who his wife's lawyer was. The gamer, let's call him Blind Brother, froze for a second. He seemed impressed. I guessed he was facing a professional. "It's that famous influencer lawyer, Ning Hong," he said. I felt a smirk tugging at my lips. I hadn't gone looking for her yet, but here she was, stepping right into my path again. I told him to give me the details. The chat was buzzing. Some of his fans were confused, thinking he had married into a wealthy family. They thought his wife was a billionaire heiress. As I listened to him talk, I realized what was actually happening. Blind Brother was a victim of a classic gold digger setup. This world was still a bit naive compared to my previous life. People here hadn't seen this level of manipulation yet. He explained how he'd struck it rich a couple of years ago. He started hitting the clubs, showing off his wealth. One night, he saw a woman at the next table ordering even more expensive bottles than he was. That was his future wife. She lived a life of extreme luxury, designer brands, high-end penthouses, and multi-million-dollar sports cars. He thought he'd hit the jackpot. He had no idea he was the one being hunted. When they went out together, she was the one throwing money around without blinking. She looked and acted like a perfect rich girl, and it completely blinded Blind Brother. He was used to women who only wanted to spend his money, so finding one who spent her own on him felt like a dream. He fell hard and fast. She started dropping hints about her family background, claiming they were worth tens of billions. She was beautiful, had a perfect body, and was loaded. He thought he'd finally found the one. She even whispered that once they got married, he'd inherit a massive chunk of that family fortune. It felt like he'd won the lottery of life. Things moved so quickly that he married her without even meeting her parents. After the wedding, he kept asking to visit her family. She always had an excuse. Suddenly, the rich heiress disappeared. Every single expense, from groceries to luxury items, started coming out of his account. She told him that since they were married, using his money proved his status as the head of the household. It was pure manipulation, but he ate it up. This happened right when his streaming career exploded. He was making money faster than he could count, and he wanted to impress his wealthy wife and her family. He handed her his bank cards and gave her full access. She went wild. She bought supercars and designer brands like water. Blind Brother started tearing up as he told me this. He was streaming 10 hours a day, and she was spending tens of thousands, sometimes nearly $1 million, in a single day. Even at his peak, he had never lived that luxuriously. He told himself it was normal for a girl of her status, and that if he kept her happy, her family's billions would eventually be theirs. Then, the psychological torture started. She convinced him to get a vasectomy, claiming she wanted to enjoy their life together without distractions. A week ago, he woke up to find his bank account balance at zero. His wife was gone. Then, he got a text from her. She said she suddenly wanted kids, but since he was sterilized, it was all his fault. She wanted a divorce. He was stunned. He only did it because she asked. He tried to get the procedure reversed, but it failed. He was now permanently infertile. That became her main argument for the divorce. She told him he was a man with no backbone for listening to her, and she couldn't be with someone like that. I interrupted him to ask if he had ever hit her. He shook his head. Good. If there was domestic violence involved, this would be much harder. Then he told me he'd hired a private investigator to look into her billionaire background. The truth was pathetic. She wasn't an heiress. She was a high school dropout who had been working in nightclubs 6 months ago. She had multiple abortions in her past, which she jokingly referred to as angel babies visiting her. He immediately checked himself for STDs. Luckily, he was clean. The chat went silent, then exploded in rage. This woman had systematically hunted him, drained his wealth, forced him into infertility, and was now suing for half of what was left. It was a total setup. The luxury cars and penthouses she had at the start, all rentals. The designer gear, fakes. Men in the chat were panicking. They were talking about the marriage laws in this world and how they always seemed to favor the woman in these splits. Some were saying they were going to cancel their weddings the next day. They saw Blind Brother, a man who worked himself to the bone, losing his money and his ability to have a family all at once. It was a tragedy. Lawyer Lin, you have to save me. Blind Brother sobbed. He sounded like his heart was going to give out. I took a deep breath. In the eyes of the law, men aren't always seen as the vulnerable party, but this was clearly predatory. Don't panic, I said firmly. Come to my firm. We need to go over the details in person. He agreed immediately, saying he'd take a leave of absence from his streaming agency and be there tomorrow. After he disconnected, I stayed on the stream for a moment. I needed to study the marriage laws of this parallel world to see exactly what I was up against. Just as I was about to sign off, a new message popped up. Lawyer Lin, can I ask you something? Do you specialize in civil or criminal law? A message flashed across the screen. I narrowed my eyes at the camera. I'm an all-rounder, I replied calmly. But I know a thing or two about marriage law. The chat started buzzing immediately. Wait, what does the marriage law look like right now? Someone asked. I'll just learn it now, I said. It shouldn't be a problem. The stream exploded. The viewers couldn't believe their ears. He's going to learn the law now? Right before a case. Don't worry, another user joked. If he loses, he loses. Ever since Blind Brother got rich, he hasn't been giving us good content anyway. Maybe Lawyer Lin will work his magic and accidentally send Blind Brother to jail too. Now that would be peak entertainment. The chat was filled with laughter and dark humor. I didn't stay to chat. I signed off, leaving the netizens wanting more. As the stream went dark, a rumor started spreading in the comments. People were telling everyone to go check out Ning Hong's social media page. Apparently, her comment section was a war zone. Ning Hong was currently losing her mind. She never expected Luo Daxian, a heavyweight in the legal world, to personally comment on my case and publicly debunk her theory about false accusation charges. Her face felt hot, like she'd been slapped in front of millions. Her latest video was flooded with mockery. And she calls herself a red circle firm lawyer? One comment read, she doesn't even understand basic statutes. Stop embarrassing yourself. Others were comparing us. Lawyer Lin uses the law to save people, while you just sit there talking trash. Brothers, stay sharp. You can look at her, but never hire her. Ning Hong sat in her expensive office chair, gripping her iPhone so hard her knuckles turned white. She let out a frustrated scream and slammed the phone onto her desk. These idiots, she hissed. Her face was flushed with rage. I'm a top-tier lawyer. I've won 3 major cases in a row with fees totaling millions. How dare these losers judge me? She immediately recorded a rebuttal video, threatening to send lawyer letters to anyone defaming her. It backfired instantly. The comments mocked her even harder. Oh no, a lawyer letter. We're so scared, they wrote. Lawyer Lin never sends letters. He just sues. If you're so good, Ning Hong, stop barking and actually file a lawsuit. Her blood pressure was through the roof. Her reputation was tanking in real time. Just then, a senior colleague, Lawyer Wong, walked in. What's wrong, Ning? He asked. I'm being cyberbullied, she snapped, completely ignoring the fact that she had started the harassment against me first. It's all because of that Lin Mo. He's a hack who got lucky once and thinks he's a king. I'm going to sue him. Wong smiled thinly. Actually, the partner of our Shanghai branch wants to see you. It's about Lin Mo. Ning Hong stood up, smoothed her skirt, and marched toward the corner office. She pushed open the door to find Zhang Yan, a legendary lawyer who pulled in over $20 million a year in fees. He was the heavy hitter sent by headquarters to oversee this branch. Sit down, Ning, Zhang Yan said, gesturing to a chair. You know Lin Mo? He's a menace, she grumbled. He's inciting his fans to attack me. Zhang Yan waved his hand dismissively. Forget the lawsuit. He's coming to us. You're handling Blind Brother's divorce case, right? Ning Hong's eyes flickered. Yes, I'm handling it, within legal limits. Zhang Yan sipped his coffee. I don't care how you handle it. I'm telling you this because Lin Mo just took the case for the husband. He's your opponent now. Ning Hong froze. Then a slow, predatory smile spread across her face. Him? I know exactly what his legal level is. In court, I'll tear him apart. She clenched her fists, desperate for a chance to redeem herself. If she crushed me in court, the haters would have to shut up. I've watched his previous cases, Zhang Yan noted. He wins by being unpredictable, but his actual legal foundation and debating skills seem weak. Still, this case has massive eyes on it. We must win. It's good for the firm's brand. Ning Hong leaned back, confident. Lawyer Zhang, I can't even imagine a way I could lose this. Marriage law is my home turf. Zhang Yan nodded. He wasn't worried. He was actually thinking about his old rival, Huang Jianqing. Huang had tried to set a trap for me to help his son's career, but it had blown up in his face. Zhang Yin wanted to invite Huang to watch the trial just to see the look on his face when we won. While they plotted, the world outside was changing. Across the country, the first wave of bullied students began their counterattack. It was a great day for the school bullies. They were raking in protection money, exactly 2,000 yuan from every victim. But it was a busy day for the police. Stations were flooded with reports of robberies. These weren't petty thefts. They were high-value robberies committed by minors. The veteran officers were baffled. It looked like a massive, organized crime ring, but the suspects were just local punks. The strangest part? The bullies didn't even realize they were committing robbery. They kept shouting that the victims had given them the money voluntarily. The situation was spiraling. Local precincts reported to the city reported to the province, and the province realized they had a crisis on their hands. Hundreds of cases of felony robbery by minors had broken out in a single day. The trap I had set was finally beginning to snap shut. The local police couldn't contain it anymore. The reports kept piling up until they had no choice but to escalate the situation to the provincial level. Eventually, the files landed on the desk of Feng Buping, the Deputy Minister of Public Security. Feng Buping was having a massive headache. He stared at the documents in front of him, his face darkening with every page he turned. He couldn't wrap his head around it. How was it possible for over 1,000 cases of minor-led robberies to break out across the country in a single day? He felt a chill down his spine. This felt like something bigger than just a few rebellious kids. Another deputy minister rushed into his office, looking just as panicked. "Old Feng, did you see the latest reports?" "I saw them," Feng Buping replied, his voice heavy. "I have no idea what's going on. These cases all happened overnight. Do you think some foreign entity is inciting these kids to commit crimes?" The room went silent. If that were true, we were looking at a national security crisis. Feng Buping stood up, ready to head to the minister's office, but his young secretary, Xiao Yang, stopped him. She looked nervous, clutching her phone. "Sir, I think I might know why this is happening," she whispered. Both high-ranking officials turned to look at the young woman. She adjusted her glasses and pulled up a video on her phone. It was me. The footage showed the moment I presented the evidence of burglary in court. Feng Buping watched it, but he still looked confused. He didn't see the connection yet. "Xiao Yang, compile everything related to this," he ordered. She was quick. Within half an hour, a complete dossier on the case was sitting on his desk. As Feng Buping read through it, his expression shifted from confusion to pure shock. He finally understood. "This lawyer, he's a damn genius," Feng Buping muttered. He realized I was the mastermind behind the chaos. I had taken a simple bullying case and turned it into a felony burglary charge by baiting the bullies into a private residence. It was a legal trap, a masterpiece of open manipulation. But the real kicker was that I had shared my success story online. Now, students all over the country were following my lead. "This is madness." Feng Buping slammed the desk. "Over 1,000 kids robbed in one day because they're all copying this Lin MO. And these bullies, they're idiots. They actually dared to take 2,000 yuan? Don't they know the law?" The other minister sighed, looking helpless. "Old Feng, the worst part is we can't even arrest this lawyer Lin. He didn't break a single law." Feng Buping's eye twitched. He knew the law inside out. Entrapment usually applied to government officials, not private citizens. There was zero evidence that I had physically forced anyone to do anything. I was legally untouchable. "Is there no law against inducing someone to commit a crime like this?" the other minister asked. "According to the legal experts, no," Feng Buping replied. "Even the top scholars are saying it's not a crime. At most, the defense can argue the bullies didn't know the law to get a lighter sentence. But we can't stop the spread of his methods." Feng Buping felt stuck. He was the man in charge of handling school violence, and it had been his biggest regret that he couldn't find a solution. Now, a small-time lawyer had shown him a solution so radical it was breaking the system. "I wanted to stop bullying, but I didn't ask for this." Feng Buping groaned. "Robbery carries a heavy sentence. If we handle this wrong, the social impact will be catastrophic. Do we arrest them or not? We know it's a setup, but the crimes are real." He turned to his colleague. "What do you think?" "Don't ask me," the other man said, backing away quickly. "This isn't my department. I'm not touching this mess." Feng Buping sighed and picked up his phone. He called the Supreme Procuratorate. Hello? This is phone booping. I'm calling about the Lin Mo situation. The whole country is imitating him. How do we handle the arrests? What? You don't know either? He hung up, stunned. Even the top prosecutors were baffled. They were currently consulting the elders at the Supreme Court. A single lawyer had managed to shake the very foundations of the legal system. Fine. Phone booping said, his eyes narrowing. If the evidence is there, we arrest them. We can't let these punks think they're above the law. We act according to the book. We can't let the victims down. Xiaoyang, send out a notice to every province. We are cracking down on school bullying, hard. Xiaoyang smiled, a look of relief crossing her face. Yes, sir. I'll draft it right away. Meanwhile, in the hallowed halls of the Supreme Court, Judge Wang Jinhua was getting lectured. He stood there with his head down while an older, more senior judge paced in front of him. Jinhua, the higher-ups are very unhappy with this public outcry, the old man barked. Do you realize what you've done? Wang Jinhua didn't say a word, but inside, he was fuming. You were the one who told me to pass the sentence without feeling pressured, he thought. What are you muttering about? The old man snapped. Nothing, sir, Wang Jinhua said. I know what you're thinking, the old man said, slamming his hand on the desk. I told you to be firm, but I didn't tell you to cause a national sensation. You sentenced them to death right there in the courtroom. You couldn't have just handed it over to the prosecution for a standard public trial? You couldn't have lowered the heat? You had your moment of glory on the bench, and now I have to clean up the mess. Wang Jinhua took a deep breath. And what about Lin Mo? The old man glanced at him. You were the one who made the first ruling. You tell me. Wang Jinhua hesitated. The old man sighed. We follow the law. I've already contacted the local prosecutors. They're moving forward with the charges. Wang Jinhua nodded. He realized then that the law was never just black and white. It was a complex, messy game, and I was the one holding all the cards. I wasn't in the room, but the ripples I'd made were hitting the Supreme Court hard. Judge Wang Jinhua stood with his head down while a senior judge paced in front of him. The old man was furious. He explained that Tian Guang only got the death penalty because the defense lawyer, Huang Xian, had been completely stunned by my performance. Huang hadn't presented a single shred of useful evidence. The senior judge figured that with a proper appeal, the sentence might actually be reduced. Wang Jinhua was about to leave when he stopped. He mentioned my name again. He told the senior judge that I had just taken on a new divorce case that was already trending online. He was worried. He had a literal psychological shadow because of me. He felt like I was about to pull something massive again. The senior judge just laughed. He didn't think a simple divorce case could cause a national scandal. He told Wang that if I managed to spark another public outcry, I might as well just come work at the Supreme Court to help them rewrite the law. They both agreed it was impossible. To them, I was just a lawyer who got lucky once. They didn't realize I was just getting started. Meanwhile, the police were moving fast. Across the country, the news broke that groups of young thugs were being arrested for robbery. The parents of these bullies went into a frenzy. They flooded social media with videos of themselves crying and screaming. They claimed their innocent children had been tricked into committing crimes. One parent even looked into the camera and screamed that she would kill the lawyer named Lin Mo if anything happened to her son. The internet loved it. Netizens were cheering in the comments, thrilled to see these bullies finally facing consequences. But seeing those death threats gave me a strange reaction. I realized I needed protection. I couldn't afford to die a second time. I needed a bodyguard. That was when the door to my office at Shuanhe Law Firm creaked open. A sweet, clear voice asked if anyone was there. I looked up and blinked. Standing there was a small, cute woman. But she wasn't dressed for an office. She was wearing deep blue Taoist robes, her hair tied in a traditional bun, with a long sword strapped to her back. She looked like she walked straight out of a martial arts movie. I sighed. I figured the scammers were getting desperate. First they sent old men to sell charms. Now they were sending pretty girls in costumes. I didn't give her a chance to speak. I told her I didn't need my fortune told, I didn't need any charms, and I definitely didn't believe in ghosts. The girl froze. She looked down at her robes and then back at me with a mischievous glint in her eyes. She told me I had it all wrong. She wasn't there to sell anything. She was there to apply for the legal assistant position. I was confused. I asked if she had actually seen my recruitment video. I had specifically requested someone with high-level combat skills who could act as a bodyguard. This girl was barely 5'5" and looked like she weighed 100 pounds. A thug could knock her out with one punch. She shook her head and said she just saw the sign outside and needed an internship for her senior year. I decided to give her a chance anyway. I poured her a glass of water and told her to sit. Her name was Xiaoling. She was a student at South China University of Political Science and Law, one of the best schools in the country. She was on the debate team, had interned at courts, and had already passed the bar exam. Her resume was perfect. Honestly, she was overqualified to work for a small firm like mine. She told me she was easy to take care of and only wanted 2,000 yuan a month. I looked at the sword on her back. I asked her point-blank if she knew how to fight. Xiaoling looked embarrassed. She quickly moved her arm to hide the sword. She smiled, showing off a tiny fong, and told me she was a law-abiding citizen. She claimed she didn't know how to fight at all. I watched her carefully. She told me her outfit was just for cosplay, but I wasn't buying it. As a top-tier lawyer, reading micro-expressions was part of my survival kit. She was lying. Her eyes were darting, and she kept looking at the floor. I told her to leave. I said this place wasn't for her. Xiaoling's eyes widened in shock. She asked me why not being able to fight was a reason to reject her. I leaned back and explained the reality of my job. Being a lawyer is dangerous. If you can't fight and don't have a way to protect yourself, you shouldn't be in this game. I told her straight up that I needed an assistant who could double as a bodyguard. Her expression shifted from confusion to a sudden, mischievous spark. She raised her hand quickly and told me to wait. She admitted my requirement was weird, but then she claimed she was actually perfect for the role. I smirked. The girl was persistent. I told her to prove it. Xiaoling stood up and backed into the open space of my office. She took a deep breath and dropped into a stance. Even in that robe, her movements were fluid. It was the opening move of Tai Chi. She started to flow through the forms, and I have to admit, I was impressed. Her punches were crisp, and her balance was perfect. She looked like a professional athlete. When she finished, she straightened her robe and looked at me expectantly. I told her it looked good, but I was looking for real combat skills, not a synchronized dance routine. She got desperate. She told me she could handle a real fight and challenged me to attack her. I'm over 6 feet tall and outweighed her by at least 40 pounds. It felt like overkill, but I needed to know. I lunged at her, mimicking the way a fanatic might charge in with a knife. Even with the sudden burst of speed, she didn't flinch. She stepped forward, timed my stride perfectly, and grabbed my waist. I panicked for a second, worried I'd crush her under my weight. But she was incredibly agile. She tilted her body, leaned back, and suddenly the room was spinning. I felt a massive force launch me through the air. When I opened my eyes, I was back in my chair, vibrating from the impact. Xiaoling was standing there with her hands on her hips, a proud, smug grin on her face. I coughed, feeling a bit embarrassed. A tiny girl had just tossed me around like a rag doll. It was definitely Tai Chi's, using strength against strength technique. You don't pull that off without years of training. I asked her if that was the legendary 4 ounces moves 1,000 pounds. She nodded. She told me she was an orphan who grew up training on Wudong Mountain. She had been practicing for 20 years and even had professional combat training. I couldn't help but smile. A Wudong disciple who studied law? Her master had thought of everything. If she couldn't win the fight, she could use the law. If she lost the fight, she could sue them for every penny. It was the ultimate combo. I asked her what her best record was. She blinked, looking a bit guilty. She asked what I meant by record. I told her I meant fights, not her GPA. She sighed in relief and told me she once took on 5 people at once, and it was ruled as justifiable self-defense. I was thrilled. She was exactly what I needed. But something didn't add up. With a resume like hers, any firm would have hired her in a heartbeat. I asked her why she chose my small office. Her confidence vanished instantly. She started fidgeting, looking down and drawing circles on the floor with her toe. I sensed trouble. I pulled out my phone and checked the Lawyer Association's blacklist for assistants. Sure enough, there she was. I was shocked. She looked so cheerful, but her record was wild. I clicked on the details. In November, she beat up a client at one firm. In mid-November, she She beat up a defendant during a mediation session at another. In December, she sent an opposing lawyer to the hospital. She wasn't just a lawyer, she was a battle mage. Xiaoling saw my face and slumped her shoulders. She told me she understood and turned to leave, sounding defeated. I called out to her. I asked her why she did it. She turned back, her face red with anger. She told me they were all using legal loopholes to satisfy their own greed instead of upholding justice. I told her to sit down. I realized what the problem was. She was young and idealistic. She saw the world in black and white and refused to compromise her principles. She was just too stubborn for the corporate legal world. The first incident involved a client who wanted to dodge his alimony and support obligations. He was literally trying to starve his own parents to death. Xiaoling couldn't stand it. She didn't argue. She just punched him. The second incident involved an opposing lawyer in a hit-and-run case. That lawyer was helping a killer escape justice, and he was winning. The victim had been a strong, middle-aged man, leaving behind a helpless family. Xiaoling snapped and beat the lawyer right there in court. I stared at her, speechless. I looked up the legal rulings on her past fights. Most of them had actually been ruled as justifiable self-defense. This girl was fierce. My mentor said the law is for justice, Xiaoling said, her voice heavy with disappointment. But all I see is people turning black into white. She waved a hand dismissively. Anyway, I'm done. Thank you for the opportunity. She stood up to leave. With a track record that dark, she knew no normal firm would touch her. She had just come here to vent. Wait, I said, a smile spreading across my face. That resume might be a deal-breaker for other firms, but for me, it's a bonus. She froze, looking at me with total confusion. How could being a liability be a bonus? I was thrilled. She had high legal literacy, and she could fight. She was the perfect template I'd been looking for my entire career. I wasn't letting this talent walk out the door. You've made it to the second round of the interview, I announced. I passed, she stammered. Now, spar with me, I said, standing up. I need to see your actual combat skills. Is this a legal knowledge test? She asked, blinking. This is a law firm, I replied, dropping into a fighting stance. Of course we're testing how you fight. She looked horrified. Is this firm even legal? Less talk, more action. I lunged at her. I wasn't some weak office worker. I spent my free time training in unrestricted combat and hitting the gym. But the moment we engaged, she locked me down completely. It was like fighting a cloud. Every time I swung, I hit nothing but air and redirection. She was thin, but she absorbed my full force attacks like they were nothing. I backed off, wiping sweat from my forehead. She had passed the physical test with flying colors. With your skills, you should be a professional fighter, not a lawyer. I grew up on a mountain, she explained. I beat up all my senior brothers. Then I beat up some rude tourists. I wouldn't study Taoist scriptures, so my master got fed up. He kicked me out to take the college entrance exams and study law. He said it would teach me modern rules and etiquette. But after my internship, I realized the law isn't fair. It's just red tape that protects the wrong people. I didn't learn rules. I learned that I'd rather just beat the bad guys to death. The law is useless. She clenched her fists, her teeth gritted. I understood her perfectly. Her ideals had crashed into reality, shattering her belief in the sanctity of the law. Every young lawyer goes through this. They start out wanting to save the world, then they see how the sausage is made and they break. She just hit that wall earlier than most. I had been there too. Years ago, the chaos of the system almost broke me. But then I learned the truth. You have to step outside the frame to truly use it. You don't complain about the environment, you master it. My current case, the school bullying lawsuit that had the whole country panicking, was proof of that. Xiaoling, I asked, do you know what modern martial arts are? She shook her head, confused. It's the law, I said confidently. If you use it right, the law is a perfectly legal form of kung fu. She tilted her head, thinking hard. If you truly mastered the law, I continued, you wouldn't have needed to punch those people. You could have used the law to bury them in a cage. She looked stunned. But my teachers said the law is for justice. I leaned in and smiled. Justice needs to be practical. Take your first case. You tried to argue about support obligations, and he dodged you. But if you had sued him for the attempted murder of his parents, do you think he would still be acting smug? Her eyes went wide. Attempted murder? She went quiet, her mind racing. It was a radical shift in logic. Most lawyers just follow the script, but I was teaching her how to rewrite it. Let that sink in, I said, patting her shoulder. Now, before we start the next phase, let's talk salary. I get a salary? She asked, shocked. In my firm, yes. I knew how the industry worked. Most interns are treated worse than dogs, paid pennies, or even forced to pay the firm for the privilege of working there. Could you give me $2,000 a month? She asked, her eyes shining with hope. Only $2,000. She was cheap. Then again, she was on a blacklist. She'd probably been surviving on side hustles like fortune-telling or feng shui just to eat. Suddenly, a loud growl echoed through the quiet office. It came from her stomach. Her face turned bright red instantly. I'm sorry, I haven't had breakfast. I looked at her, knowing the look of a starving artist when I saw one. You're broke, aren't you? I have money, she squeaked, looking away. I did a funeral service at the crematorium this morning. The payment just hasn't cleared yet. So that's why she was wearing the Taoist robes. She was taking any job she could get. Your base salary is $4,000, I said. $4,000? She shouted, cutting me off before I could even finish. Her eyes sparkled. It was like she couldn't wait another second to join the firm. When a person is starving, their primal instincts take over, and right now, she was looking at me with pure heat in her eyes. She told me she'd interned at plenty of firms before. Most of them paid nothing, treating interns like pack mules. One firm even had the audacity to make her pay them for the privilege of working. That's why 4,000 yuan sounded like a fortune to her. To her, I wasn't just a boss. I was the first person to treat her like a human being. I waved my hand to calm her down. We're not finished yet, I said. There's a second round to this interview. The more talent you show, the higher that salary goes. Talent? Xia Ling asked, her eyes narrowing as she shifted her weight. Do you mean fighting? My eyelid twitched. No, I mean your legal talent, your knowledge of the law. Oh, right, got it, she said, nodding quickly. Go ahead, test me. No need for a written test, I told her. We're going straight to a real case. A client named Brother Xia just messaged me. He's on his way. We'll use his situation to see what you've got. Sit tight. I'll order you some breakfast. Xia Ling immediately reverted to a polite, reserved posture. She sat with her legs pressed together and her hands on her knees, looking incredibly stiff. That lasted exactly until a bowl of jajang noodles arrived. The moment the food touched the desk, her ladylike image vanished. She started inhaling those noodles like her life depended on it. I watched her and couldn't help but smile. It reminded me of when I first graduated. My internship salary was a pathetic 800 yuan. 600 went to rent for a tiny warehouse in a slum, leaving me with only 200 for food for the entire month. I knew exactly how she felt. Still, I wondered how a girl this beautiful, graduating from a top-tier law school, ended up this broke. If she'd just become a legal influencer, she'd probably have more fans than Ning Hong. Before I could ask, the office door swung open. Lawyer Lin, I finally found you. You have to save me. It was Brother Xia. I stood up and shook his hand, ushering him in. My office was small, so besides my desk chair, there was only one long bench. Brother Xia plopped down right next to Xia Ling, who was still mid-slurp. She got bumped to the side, her mouth full of noodles, and looked up in shock. She realized having a client see her like this was bad for business, but she didn't know whether to keep chewing or put the bowl down. Here's your second interview, I whispered to her. Finish up, quick. She took the hint and buried her face in the bowl, finishing the rest in 3 massive bites. Brother Xia stared at her, eyes wide. He couldn't wrap his head around how a sweet-looking girl in Taoist robes could have such a terrifying appetite. Brother Xia, tell us the details, I said. This is Xia Ling. She's your legal consultant. Brother Xia's eyes went even wider. Then, a look of understanding crossed his face, and he gave me a big thumbs up. I knew you were the best, Lawyer Lin. Not only do you know the law, but you've branched out into metaphysics, combining the law with the divine. You'll be invincible. Should I give the great immortal here my birth charts so she can calculate if we'll win? I felt a headache coming on. It's nothing like that. And next time, Xia Ling, no Taoist robes. She's a graduate of the South University of Political Science and Law. The robes are just Cosplay. We're a professional team. We don't do the spiritual stuff. Xiaoling nodded solemnly. For 4,000 a month, I'm whoever you say I am. Brother Xia looked genuinely disappointed. He actually seemed excited about the idea of a Taoist priest fighting a legal battle. He sat back and laid out the facts, which were even worse than what he'd shared on the live stream. The biggest issue was the money. His wife had already seized control of all their savings. She told him flat out, if he didn't agree to a normal divorce and a standard property split, she would spend every single cent until there was nothing left. On top of that, she was busy taking out loans to create marital debt that he'd be responsible for. That's why he was desperate. If he didn't divorce, he'd have nothing. If he did, he'd have to give her half, and with Ning Hong representing her, she'd probably walk away with even more. Every lawyer he'd talked to refused the case. It was a guaranteed loss. Xiaoling, what do you think? I asked. Xiaoling's expression changed instantly. The sweetness vanished, replaced by a look of pure, burning rage. Her jaw tightened, and her facial muscles actually started to twitch. Brother Xia flinched, terrified by the sudden transformation. Suddenly, shink, Xiaoling drew the long sword from her back. This is too much, she roared, her voice trembling with fury. Using the law to swindle people? Such evil must be punished. She swung the blade, and a cold flash of steel zipped past Brother Xia's face. A small clump of his hair fluttered to the floor. Holy! Brother Xia scrambled backward, clutching his head. He looked at me, trembling. Lawyer Lin, are you sure this is a law firm and not a hitman agency? That sword is real. I sighed. Now I knew why she was blacklisted. With a temper like that, who wouldn't be afraid of her? If she lost a case, she might actually try to behead the judge. Xiaoling, calm down, I said sternly. Answer from a legal perspective, or you don't get paid. The word, paid, acted like a bucket of ice water. She froze, sheathed the sword, and bowed. I'm sorry. I got emotional. She took a deep breath, trying to salvage the interview. This was the only firm that would even look at her, and she needed the money. She cleared her throat and spoke in a professional tone. Brother Xia, most of your assets were earned after marriage, making them joint property. In a standard suit, you'd get 60%, but you'd still lose 40%. To avoid this, we have options. First, we prove the savings are actually business turnover capital, not personal savings. Second, we file for a property preservation order to stop her from spending it. Third, we use a third-party company to transfer the assets. She listed 7 different methods in total. When she finished, she peeked at me, waiting for my reaction. Brother Xia, however, looked dejected. The whiplash from crazed swordswoman to serious lawyer was a lot to take, but the content didn't impress him. It won't work, Brother Xia said, shaking his head. Other lawyers told me the same things. They said the operational difficulty is too high. It's too risky. He looked at me, his hope fading. Lawyer Lin, if this is all you and your assistant have, you can't save me. Xiaoling's face turned bright red. Being dismissed like that in public stung. She bit her lip, looking like she wanted to draw her sword again, but she stayed quiet. I leaned back in my chair and looked at Brother Xia. She's right about the standard procedures. But if you want to keep everything, there's a much simpler way. I paused for effect. Why don't we just send her to prison instead? Xiaoling's face burned red. She knew her suggestions were standard, but seeing Brother Xia's disappointment stung. She was just an intern, and these were the only moves she had been taught in law school. She quickly tried to salvage the situation before I lost the client. Wait, Brother Xia, she said, waving her hands frantically. I'm just a temporary assistant. My skills are, well, they're basic. Please, listen to my boss. He's the lead attorney here. When I get stressed, I just think about, well, cutting people. But he actually knows what he's doing. I couldn't help but chuckle. She was an honest girl. She didn't waste time with excuses. She just admitted she'd rather swing a sword than a briefcase. Brother Xia didn't find it funny. He looked at me, his expression souring by the second. Lawyer Lin, what are you laughing at? This is my life. If you don't have a real plan, I'm leaving right now. He was reaching his breaking point. He had heard the rumors about me, that I didn't care about legal theory and only cared about gimmicks. Looking at this dusty, rundown office and a girl who carried a katana, he clearly thought he'd made a mistake coming here. I reached out, and patted his shoulder to calm him down. I looked at Xiaoling. My assistant is right. Everything she said is what a professional lawyer would tell you. She's a student. Her logic is perfectly sound according to the books. So there really is no way? Brother Xia asked, his brow furrowed. Theoretically? No, I admitted. I don't believe this. Brother Xia gritted his teeth. That woman set me up. She played me for a fool, and now the law says I have to hand her half my life's work? Where's the justice? I leaned in, a small smile playing on my lips. I never said I didn't have a way that's guaranteed to work. Both of them froze. Brother Xia's eyes lit up with sudden hope, while Xiaoling looked at me with pure confusion. She couldn't see any other path within the marriage laws. Looking at this from the perspective of marriage law is a losing battle, I explained. So, we changed the strategy. We stopped fighting a divorce case. Instead, we sue your wife for domestic violence, fraud, and the illegal transfer of assets. The room went silent. Xiaoling's mouth hung open. But, this is a divorce case. How does fraud even fit in here? That doesn't seem logical. Brother Xia was just as stunned. Lawyer Lin, suing my own wife for fraud? Is that even legal? I didn't give him a direct answer. I kept my voice calm and steady. Don't worry about whether it seems logical right now. If I can get her sent to prison, your money stays protected. You get your divorce, and she leaves with absolutely nothing. She'll be lucky to leave with her prison uniform. Brother Xia's eyes widened. His brain was working overtime, trying to process the sheer audacity of the plan. Can you actually pull that off? I have a high degree of confidence, I said. But no lawyer can guarantee 100% win. If you want to proceed, we sign the contract now. My fee is 10% of whatever assets I recover for you. Brother Xiao winced. 10% of his wealth was a massive sum, well over 1,000,000 yuan. I gave him space to think. I wasn't going to beg. Xiaoling leaned in close to me, her big eyes blinking in disbelief. Linimo, can we really do that? Shouldn't we be trying to win using marriage law theories? Can we win that way? I countered. She shook her head. Probably not. Then why should we play inside a frame they built for us? I asked. I knew why Xiaoling usually lost her cases. She let the opposition lead her by the nose. She followed the rules while they exploited them. As long as the outcome is morally just, I don't care what methods I use to win. Xiaoling's eyes sparkled. It was like a light bulb went off in her head. I get it. If we put the bad person in jail, justice is served and the problem is solved forever. It's like modern-day martial arts. I frowned. She was technically right, but her phrasing was a bit extreme. Wait, what are you talking about? You can't just put someone in jail out of thin air. She has to actually commit the crime of fraud for me to sue her for it. What is going on in that head of yours? I reached out and gave her a light flick on the forehead. Ouch. She rubbed her head, pouting. But did she really commit fraud? Can things that happen inside a marriage even be called fraud? Brother Xia nodded in agreement. Yeah, that's my concern too. Is it really a crime? I stood up and poured myself a glass of water. Brother Xia, here is the deal. I only collect my fee after I get your money back. You can choose to trust me, or you can go to another firm, follow the standard rules, and watch 40 to 50% of your wealth disappear. Those elite lawyers at the big firms will charge you 20% just to lose your case. My price is a bargain. I sat back down. I needed my clients to believe in me. If they didn't, I couldn't help them. Besides, I needed the money. I wanted a better life, and I wasn't going to get it by losing. Xiaoling was still deep in thought. My professors never mentioned anything like this, she whispered. Once you jump out of the traditional frame, I said softly, that's when you've actually started learning the law. Brother Xia looked at the contract. He was clearly agonized by the 10% fee, but the alternative was much worse. If he lost half his fortune to that woman, he'd never recover. My teacher always said, Xiaoling added, trying to help, that if the front door is locked, try the back window. This is definitely a back window move. Brother Xia took a deep breath. He looked at the pen, then at me. He made his choice. Compared to losing everything, 10% was a price he was finally willing to pay.